Chapter 26. Faced with Dales's plea, Yutian did not respond immediately. He pointed at Amondo's body not far away, his tone cold. "Didn't I just say that? If you refuse, this will be your end." Seeing that Yutian was determined to take his own life, Dales was in confusion and felt unprecedented fear. He understood that Yutian was definitely not joking. In order to save his life, he gritted his teeth and said cruelly, "If you are willing to let me go, I am willing to dedicate my treasure to you." "What treasure are you going to offer me?" Yutian raised his eyebrows and asked with interest. He had actually guessed that the treasure Dares was talking about was the spirit tree seeds, but he still wanted to hear how Dares would describe it. Dales explained eagerly. "This treasure is the spirit tree seed. As long as it is planted on a living planet, it will quickly absorb the life energy of the planet and bear the spirit tree fruit. After eating this fruit, your strength will skyrocket." Speaking of this, a trace of greed and desire flashed in Dale's eyes. But in order to survive, he had to make this decision. After hearing this, Yutian still looked normal and just responded lightly. "But, even if I take your life, I can still get the fruit of the spirit tree." His voice was calm, as if he was stating a simple truth. Dales was stunned. He didn't expect Yutian to be so decisive. He took a deep breath and started pretending again. "Although I am not as strong as you, if you really want to take my life, I can completely destroy the spirit tree seeds before I die." After hearing this, Yutian's mouth curled up into a sneer, with a contemptuous attitude. "Do you think that with your little strength, you can really destroy the spirit tree seeds in front of me? Dales, I think you are really impatient, and now you dare to threaten me." There was disdain for Dales in his voice. But Yutian was telling the truth. With Dare's strength, it was not worth mentioning in front of him. Dales's heart skipped a beat. He recalled that he had just fought against Yutian, and he was completely on the receiving end. Especially in the last scene where Yutian cuts off his own tail, he didn't notice it at all. If what Yutian had cut off was not his tail, but his neck. Thinking of this, Dales couldn't help but shudder in his heart. "Well, since you have nothing to say, I will send you on your way now," Yutian said slowly, while extending his palm. A terrifying energy began to gather in his palm. The reason why he talked so much to Dales was because the spiritual tree seeds in this Dragon Ball world were somewhat different from the theatrical version he knew. He wanted to hear if this Dales had any special information. Since Dales couldn't reveal any valuable information, there was no need to keep him alive. When Dales saw this, he was very anxious. He knows that if he doesn't reflect his own value, he will lose his life. "Wait, I still have a huge secret to tell you. This information will definitely be of great help to you." Although Dale's voice was trembling, his tone was extremely firm. When Yutian heard this, the energy in his hand slowly dissipated. He narrowed his eyes, looked at Dales, and said coldly, "Okay, I'll give you one last chance. Don't think of any tricks, otherwise I will let you know what life is worse than death." Hearing this, Dales nodded quickly. "There are absolutely no tricks. This secret is the source of the spiritual tree seeds. In fact, it comes from a very secret planet. The people on that planet call it the place of origin." The place of origin. Yutian frowned and became wary. In his impression, this place never existed in the original work. Yes, this star is shrouded in a strange black fog all year round. It cannot be detected by ordinary universe radar, and the space it is in is also changing all the time. Dales explained. "Then how did you find it?" Yutian asked seriously. Dales lowered his head and whispered. "This was a complete accident. At that time, I had not yet betrayed Frieza's legion. Our team encountered Slug's men during the patrol, and a fierce battle broke out. In the end, I was seriously injured, and I flew into a universe in a panic. The spaceship escaped and accidentally landed on the origin planet." After listening to Dale's account, Yutian still had doubts in his heart. He felt that such a coincidence was too bizarre. So, he slowly walked towards Dales and decided to use mind reading on Dales to explore the truth. Dales has great combat power, so normally it would be difficult to read his memory. However, at this moment, he just wanted to save his life and did not dare to make any resistance. Yutian gathered his mental strength and slowly stretched out his palm to press on Dale's forehead. After a moment, scenes that Dales had experienced appeared in Yutian's mind, like photos one after another. A look of surprise flashed in his eyes. Because he actually saw the mysterious place of origin from Dale's memory. It was a planet shrouded in a strange black mist, and the surrounding space was distorted and unstable, as if it was changing position all the time. This picture inexplicably reminded Yutian of the mutated Dragon Balls on the Earth. It's a pity that the mind-reading technique can only see a few fragmented fragments, and Yutian has no way to get a glimpse of the true appearance of the place of origin. Dales noticed that Yutian was peeking into his memory, but he did not panic, but was secretly happy. He knew that everything he said was true. Yutian's probing only further confirmed his honesty. While Yutian was deep in thought, he spoke eagerly. Have you already sensed it? I am absolutely not lying. Yutian glanced at Dales coldly and said casually. The location of this planet keeps changing over time, and even knowing its existence is of no use. When Dales heard the words, he immediately blurted out. I have a way to get there. There was a cunning flash in his eyes, as if he saw a glimmer of hope. Yutian raised his eyebrows slightly and stared at Dales with burning eyes. Do you have any idea? Dales said hurriedly, yes, the people there taught me how to return. When Yutian heard this, he suddenly fell silent and looked at Dales up and down again. Dales was stared at uneasily, but he could not figure out Yutian's true thoughts. After a long time, Yutian finally spoke. Dales, have you been luring me to the so-called place of origin? What is your conspiracy? Chapter 27. Dales felt the murderous intent on Yutian's body, and his heart suddenly tightened. He understood that this answer would determine his life or death. He pursed his dry lips and spoke carefully. I admit that I keep mentioning the place of origin, but it is definitely not out of any conspiracy. Yutian raised his eyebrows and motioned for him to continue. The rulers of the place of origin are respectfully called the Maya tribe. Dale's voice was slightly trembling, revealing an indescribable awe. They guard a supreme sacred object. It is said that whoever can control this sacred object can rule the entire universe and become invincible. When Yutian heard this, a sarcastic smile appeared on his lips. Oh? According to you, the Maya tribe should be the one ruling the entire universe now. Dales shook his head hastily. No, not everyone can use sacred objects. Yutian sorted out his thoughts and asked. Why did this Maya tribe give you spiritual tree seeds? And also taught you how to return to the planet? Dales hesitated slightly, but finally spoke. The Maya tribe gave me the spiritual tree seeds to help me improve my ability to protect myself. As for teaching me how to return to the place of origin. At this point, Dales paused, and his mood suddenly became a little excited. That's because their clan leader said that I am the destined person to find the originator, and claimed that one day, I will eventually bring the originator back to the place of origin. The originator. Yutian frowned, this was another word he had never heard before. Chief Maya once said that the originator is the true master of all things in the world. Speaking of this, Dales's eyes suddenly burst into strange light. As if driven by some fanatical belief. Yutian thought to himself, the originator is the master of all things in the world, so what is Xeno? However, after listening to Dale's statement, Yutian probably already knew the ins and outs of the whole thing. At the same time, he also understood Dales's plan. If the prophecy of Patriarch Maya is accurate and I went to the place of origin with you, then I will probably be the originator. Yutian spoke slowly, with a hint of amusement in his tone. Yes, that's what I mean. Dales nodded heavily, with an expectant look on his face. Yutian looked at Dales quietly and spoke after a moment. You are very smart. His tone was calm, making it hard to tell whether it was praise or sarcasm. Dales responded quickly. I don't dare take it seriously. I just don't know what you think. He carefully tested Yutian's attitude. Yutian did not answer his question directly, but looked at Dales deeply, then turned and walked aside. Just when Dales was filled with anxiety, Yutian's voice came over coldly. I will spare your life for the time being. You go assist Gok, gather all the Frieza Legion and your team members, and tell everyone that they must either go to the Galactic Empire to face trial or die. Upon hearing this, Dales immediately nodded in response as if he had been granted amnesty. Receive. The boulder hanging in his heart finally fell to the ground. Although he may face imprisonment in a galactic prison next, it is much better than losing his life. Moreover, he also secretly planned that if Yutian went to the place of origin in the future, he might have a chance to regain his freedom. Yutian also explained some precautions to Jake. Although Jack felt a little frightened about performing the mission with Dales, he still accepted it out of trust in Yutian. According to Yutian's arrangement, Gok and Dales began to imprison members of Frieza's Legion. Sabo and Dodoria looked at each other. Unexpectedly, they had just joined the Dal's team, and in the blink of an eye, they had become prisoners of the Galactic Empire. Under the terrifying strength of Dales, everyone cooperated honestly. No one wants to play with their own life. At the same time, Yutian found an empty place and began to think about the place of origin. He knew in his heart that he would definitely not follow Dales to the mysterious place of origin. First of all, that place was not described in the original Dragon Ball novel, so he could not judge the danger level of this place of origin. Secondly, judging from the spiritual tree seeds, which are items that absorb the life force of the planet, it is not necessarily a good place. There is no need to put yourself at risk. In addition, he is not interested in the identity of this so-called originator, nor does he want to be involved in any unknown conspiracy. However, this place of origin is ultimately a hidden danger of instability and must be investigated. This was also the fundamental reason why he kept Dales alive. He planned to go to the Galaxy headquarters, describe the matter in detail to the Galaxy King, and leave it to the Galaxy Empire to handle it. After clearing his thoughts, Yutian returned to the spacecraft. Here, Dales and Gok showed efficient workability. A group of soldiers have been neatly placed in the huge universe spacecraft and are ready to set off. Dodoria looked at the scene in front of her with mixed feelings in her heart. He recalled the majesty of leading a large group of people to the planet Kabacha. As a result, not only everyone is now a prisoner, but even the universe spacecraft they are traveling on has been requisitioned as a prison van. As he set off, Yutian suddenly remembered something. He immediately signaled to Gok to suspend his departure, and then pointed out Kullenberg in the crowd. "You come out," Yutian said coldly. Kullenberg walked out of the crowd cautiously and asked tremblingly. "I don't know what you want me to do, sir." Yutian didn't bother to explain to him, so he directly raised his hand and shot an energy bomb at him. How could Kullenberg catch Yutian's attack? With a loud boom, it was immediately blown to pieces and no bones were left. Yutian said with satisfaction. "Okay, we're ready to go." When the surrounding soldiers witnessed this scene, they suddenly became panicked and frightened. They didn't expect that Yutian would kill someone so without any reason or warning. This behavior is completely different from Frieza's approach. Among the crowd, Dodoria was the most nervous at the moment. He subconsciously moved slowly behind Sabo, hoping to use Sabo's tall body to cover himself. Jake was also very surprised by Yutian's sudden behavior. But he knew Yutian's character well, so he didn't say much. After receiving Yutian's order to set off, he immediately entered the instructions to go to the Galaxy headquarters. With a roar, the huge universe spacecraft started slowly and flew quickly towards the Galaxy headquarters. Chapter 28. In the depths of the vast universe, a magnificent universe spacecraft is speeding through the sky. In the cabin, the quiet atmosphere was suddenly broken by Jack's excited voice. "Yutian, look, we are about to arrive at the Galaxy headquarters." Jack's voice couldn't contain the excitement. Yutian nodded slightly and looked at the dazzling stars outside the porthole window. The journey was long and arduous, taking nearly 3 months. He deeply understands how difficult it is to travel through the universe without the skill of teleportation. Yutian suddenly thought of Bulma. "I don't know what she is busy with at the moment." Boom! With a loud noise, the universe spacecraft landed steadily on the planet where the Galaxy headquarters is located. Jack skillfully operated the console and opened the hatch of the spacecraft. Yutian stood up slowly, glanced majestically at Dales and others, and warned in a serious tone. "We have arrived at the Galaxy headquarters. Please behave yourself and don't seek death." When Dales and others heard this, they were trembling and nodded in agreement. Upon seeing this, Yutian turned to Jake with satisfaction. "Okay, let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, he took the lead and walked towards the exit of the spacecraft, followed closely by Gok. The two walked out of the spacecraft and saw that the Galaxy headquarters had spread a soft red carpet on the ground in advance, extending to the Galaxy Palace in the distance. On both sides of the road, thousands of galactic soldiers stood solemnly, wearing crisp uniforms and holding weapons. In front of the team is the Galaxy King, the ruler of the banking empire. He saw Yutian and Jake appearing from a distance and shouted loudly, "Let's welcome our warriors home." Then, a burst of exciting music sounded. This is the unique welcome song of the Galactic Empire, with a majestic melody. Yutian looked at the grand scene in front of him and smiled secretly in his heart. Unexpectedly, this Galactic Empire is quite particular about pomp and ceremony. After the music gradually subsided, Galaxy King quickly came to Yushin and Jake. He first praised Jack. "Gok, welcome back. You have completed the mission very well this time. You are worthy of being an elite warrior." When Jack heard the Galaxy King's praise, he couldn't help showing a proud look on his face. King Galaxy turned his attention to Yushin again, with a bit of curiosity. "You must be Yutian. Jake has told me all your deeds in advance. Thank you very much for your help in this mission." Yushin smiled slightly and responded. "It's just a piece of cake. Besides, Jack himself is also my friend." When Jake heard Yushin's words, a trace of gratitude flashed in his eyes. The Galaxy King nodded after hearing this. Then, he turned around and called to the soldiers behind him, and began to carefully collect Dales and other prisoners. The first person to be taken into custody was Dodoria. Yushin noticed that a galactic soldier was holding a palm-sized suction cup-like object in his hand. He placed the suction cup tightly on Dodoria's back. Dodoria's combat effectiveness immediately dropped rapidly, and the whole person looked sluggish. The galactic soldiers then put special prison equipment on him. Galaxy King noticed Yushin's curious gaze and explained with a smile. "This item is called Wendigo, and it is a treasure of our galactic empire. It can seal the power of those powerful prisoners so that they can no longer cause trouble." Sealing power. A trace of surprise flashed in Yushin's eyes. He became very interested in this novel object. Yes, its only disadvantage is that the sealed person must also cooperate fully, so it can only be used by captured prisoners. Galaxy King explained. Yushin nodded after hearing this. "I didn't expect there to be such a magical treasure in Galaxy headquarters. This treasure was given to our Galaxy Empire by the Supreme Kai himself. It is said to be from the hands of the mysterious Mayat tribe." Galaxy King said. "Meat tribe?" Yushin's heart moved. He didn't expect to hear news about the Mayat tribe here again. As the rulers of the place of origin, the Mayat tribe was actually related to the Supreme Kai, which surprised him. The Galaxy King was also quite surprised to see that Yushin seemed to know something about the Mayat tribe. "Do you also know about the Mayat tribe? They lost their traces in a very ancient time. Even in the long past, they only existed in legends." Yushin nodded without explaining too much. He knew that this was not the place to discuss such things. Soon, after everyone was successfully detained, the Galaxy King breathed a sigh of relief. He turned to Yushin and Jake and said, "Let's go back to the Galaxy Palace first. I want to know more about your trip to Karbakistar." Yushin and Jake followed the footsteps of the Galaxy King and entered the conference room of the Galaxy Palace. Different from the previous grand ostentation, the layout here is relatively simple, but it reveals an efficient atmosphere everywhere. Yushin looked around and his eyes paused for a moment on a Galaxy patrolman who had taken his seat in advance. The galactic patrolman was neatly dressed and looked solemn. He was obviously an important participant in this meeting. The Galaxy King took his seat on the main seat, his eyes swept over everyone, and finally fell on Jack. "Jake, I received your report before. Now, please tell me the whole story in detail." Jake nodded and began to describe in an orderly manner his and Yushin's trip to Karbakistar. Yutian listened quietly and added some information about the place of origin. When Jack finished telling his story, he casually handed the spiritual tree seeds to the Galaxy King. "This is the spiritual tree seed in Dales." The Galaxy King took the seed, examined it carefully, and then handed it to the unknown Galaxy patrolman next to him. "Kuzaya, take a look too." Kuzaya heard this and took it in his hand respectfully. He looked at it for a long time, but couldn't see anything interesting, so he gave it back to Yushin. The Galaxy King sighed. "Yushin, according to what you said, if this spiritual tree seed wants to bear fruit, it needs to absorb the life force of the planet. I hope you can use this thing as little as possible to avoid bringing unnecessary disasters to the universe." Yushin nodded solemnly. "I understand what you mean. I have my own way of cultivation, and I don't need to rely on this method to improve my strength." Ever since Yushin knew that the spiritual tree seeds came from the place of origin, he had been wary, always feeling that there was some ulterior conspiracy behind it. Hearing what Yutian said, Galaxy King couldn't help but be overjoyed. His appreciation for Yutian increased even more. "Very good. Yushin, I deeply admire your awareness." Yushin waved his hand modestly, indicating that the Galaxy King had given the award. At this time, King Galaxy seemed to suddenly remember something important. He straightened his expression and spoke. "Oh, by the way, there is one more thing I want to tell you. According to the information you sent back from Earth last time, we have found the note left by Master Zunyo. Chapter 29. Have you found the note left by Lord Zunyo? Jack said excitedly after hearing this. What did it say? Galaxy King shook his head slightly and did not answer directly, but gestured to Kuzeya who was standing aside. Kuzeya understood immediately and carefully took out a piece of light yellow paper. This note looks ordinary, but if you look closely, you can find that every once in a while, there will be a subtle stream of light flashing on it. This note was found in a dusty study room of Lord Zuno. The Galaxy King spoke slowly. As for what's written on it, Jack, you can see it for yourself. Jack couldn't wait to take the note and immediately felt that it contained a strange energy. He looked eagerly at the content on the note, but the result stunned him. Why is it blank? Jack turned the note back and forth in confusion, but never found any writing. Galaxy King nodded and said in a deep voice. It's really a blank slate. We've tried a lot of things and we've found nothing. Jack checked it over and over unwillingly and said suspiciously. Could I have taken it by mistake? This note is not the one left by Master Zunyo at all. Galaxy King shook his head again, his tone affirmative. When you hold it in your hand, you should be able to feel the strange energy. This is what makes it special. In addition, Lord Zuno's study has always been well organized, and he will not leave a note without any reason. At this time, Yutian on the side asked. Can I also take a look at this note left by Master Zunyo? When the Galaxy King heard this, he smiled and nodded. Sure. Seeing that Galaxy King had agreed, Jake handed the note in his hand to Yutian. The moment Yutian took the note, sudden changes occur. Suddenly, a large amount of strange black mist appeared from the entire note. The other three people immediately stood up one after another, shocked. Yutian's expression remained unchanged, and he quickly mobilized the energy in his body to try to dispel the black mist. However, these black mists seemed to have life, automatically detached from the paper, floated into the air, and gradually condensed into a black sphere. When Yutian looked at the note in his hand again, he found that the originally yellowed paper had turned into gold, shining with a mysterious light. What's going on? Jack stood stunned, completely unable to understand what was happening in front of him. Yutian also frowned. He keenly felt that the energy contained in the black sphere in the air was very similar to the energy in the mutated Dragon Ball. It was probably the power of the rules of heaven and earth mentioned by the gods. Is there some kind of connection between the two? Just when everyone was filled with doubts and uneasiness, the black sphere suddenly began to roll violently. As if it had received some kind of summons, it rushed straight towards the golden note in Yutian's hand. Back again! Jack exclaimed, his eyes closely following the movement of the black sphere. The black sphere turned into two black air currents, like two smart black snakes, meandering on the paper. They are sometimes intertwined and sometimes separated. Suddenly, one of the air currents paused suddenly, and then began to outline the outline of a word on the paper at an extremely fast speed. It is a simple and majestic word. Every stroke appears vigorous and powerful, revealing an aura of majesty and mystery. Sky. Yutian looked at this word and felt an inexplicable throbbing in his heart. He subconsciously thought of himself, but at the same time he felt that this word seemed to contain a deeper meaning. Does heaven refer to oneself, or does it imply other people or things? Yutian was looking forward to what words could be transformed into another black airflow, so as to provide him with more clues. However, at this moment, a purple flame suddenly appeared on the note out of thin air and burned fiercely. In the astonished eyes of everyone, the note left by Zunyo was burned completely and turned into ashes. Can anyone tell me what's going on? Jack's voice was full of confusion and confusion. King Galaxy was silent for a moment, then turned his gaze to Yutian. Yutian, you seem to have gotten some information from that note. Can you share it with us? Yutian nodded, and then said slowly. The word heaven finally appeared on the note. In addition, there seemed to be another word that was about to appear, but unfortunately it was burned by the sudden purple flame. Sky. Kuzeya repeated it. After thinking for a moment, he suddenly looked at Yutian. There is also the word in your name, and the note changed after you took over. I have a bold guess. Everyone looked at Kuzeya, waiting for his next words. I think this note may have been left for you by Master Zunyo. He used some method that we can't understand to cause the note to change and display your name the moment you touch it. This everything is sending us a message that you play an important role in this matter. Maybe the clue to find Master Zunyo lies with you. Kyuzaya's idea is very straightforward. Jack immediately nodded in agreement after hearing this. Yes, Kyuzaya's analysis makes sense. However, Yushin shook his head after hearing this. Although there is in my name, it does not confirm that the word on the note refers to me. After all, there is still a word that has not emerged. In addition, how to explain the purple flame? I don't think this is a backhand left by Master Zunyo. King Galaxy had been listening quietly to everyone's discussion. Seeing that everyone had different opinions, he spoke. Yushin, you are very thoughtful. Then, he turned to Kyuzaya and nodded. Sakya, your point of view is also very enlightening. Everyone looked at the Galaxy King, wondering what his opinion was. Galaxy King looked around and continued. One thing we can confirm is that the note mutated in Yushin's hands. This should not be a coincidence. Therefore, this matter must be related to Yushin. As for the specific reason, we need further investigation. The Galaxy King's words made everyone fall into deep thought. Yutians took a deep breath, knowing that he might have been involved in an unknown universe mystery. The key to solving this mystery may be hidden in the burned note. So, what should we do next? Jack broke the silence and asked eagerly. Galaxy King thought for a moment and turned to Yushin. Yushin, can you recall whether there are any other special marks or patterns besides the word on the note? Chapter 30. Facing Galaxy King's deep inquiry, Yushin frowned slightly and fell into short memories. He shook his head slightly. Unfortunately, apart from the word, I really didn't notice any other obvious marks. Galaxy King nodded, without showing too much disappointment on his face. He said calmly, it doesn't matter, we are not helpless, there is another clue worthy of our further exploration. Oh? What clue is that? Jack couldn't help but curiously asked. It's that mysterious purple flame, Galaxy King explained, there must be some unknown force behind it. Hearing this, Kyuzaya nodded in agreement and added. Indeed, that purple flame is undoubtedly the key to our pursuit of the truth. We must find its source as soon as possible. However, Yushin is not as optimistic as Galaxy King and others. In his memory, there seemed to be no one in the Dragon Ball world who used purple flame as a signature move. Seeing that his mission here had been completed, he stood up and prepared to leave. Since I don't have anything to do here, I'll go back to Earth first. Yushin said lightly. When the Galaxy King saw this, he smiled and tried to persuade him. Don't worry, since you have made so many contributions to the Galactic Empire, we naturally want to reward you well. When Yushin heard that there was a reward, he couldn't help but be curious. Oh? What reward is that? The Galaxy King smiled and said, tomorrow at noon, I will hold a grand medal ceremony for you and Jack, and award you the Galaxy Special Contribution Medal. Jake was very excited when he heard this and expressed his gratitude with joy on his face. Thank you Lord Galaxy King. However, Yushin is not very interested in this. He responded calmly. Thank you for your kindness, but I don't need the reward. When Jake heard Yushin's refusal, he had an expression of disbelief on his face. He urged eagerly. Yushin, you have to think clearly. This is not just a medal, it represents the recognition and respect of you by the Galactic Empire. This is an honor that many people dream of, how can you give up so easily? Yushin just smiled and said nothing, but he had already made his attitude clear. In his mind, instead of staying here to participate in any investiture ceremony, it would be better to return to Earth one day earlier and reunite with Bulma. King Galaxy looked at Yushin and understood what he was thinking. He smiled and said, since you are not interested in the award, then I can give you another reward. You can put forward your wish, and as long as I can do it, I will try my best to satisfy you. When Yutian heard this, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. He pondered for a long time. He never cared about money and reputation. Now, the only thing he cares about is how to improve his strength, but this is something that the Galaxy Empire cannot directly give him. Suddenly, Yushin's heart moved. Lord Galaxy King, I wonder if I can meet Mel's from Galaxy Patrol. King Galaxy was obviously taken aback when he heard this. He turned around and asked Kyuzaya beside him. Kyuzaya, have you ever heard of a man named Mel's in the Galactic Patrol? Kyuzaya frowned, thought about it carefully and shook his head. No, I've never heard of that name. When Yushin heard this, he couldn't help but feel strange. He originally thought that Mel's was already a member of the Galaxy Patrol, but now it seems that this is not the case. In that case, Yutian said in a deep voice, then can I request to go to Galaxy Prison to meet a prisoner named Mo Luo. As soon as these words came out, everyone present was stunned, and the whole scene suddenly fell into silence. Mora is the most dangerous prisoner of the Galactic Empire and is strictly imprisoned in a secret place at the core of the Galactic Prison. Yutian actually asked to see him, which was indeed beyond everyone's expectations. King Galaxy frowned slightly. He obviously didn't expect Yutian to make such a request. Kazuya stood up immediately to express his objection. No. The place where Mora is imprisoned is the top secret of the Galaxy Prison. Non-Galaxy Patrol personnel are absolutely not allowed to enter. Yutian glanced at Kazuya calmly and said nothing. Since Mels has not joined the Galaxy Patrol, he can only use the super binding system to bind Mora. In his eyes, this is the only reward that the Galactic Empire can give him that suits his heart. King Galaxy waved his hand, signaling Kazuya to calm down. He took a deep look at Yutian and said in a deep voice. I didn't expect you to know about Mo Luo. He is an extremely dangerous person. A little carelessness may lead to unpredictable consequences. Are you sure you want to see him? Yutian nodded, his voice firm. Yes, I'm sure. King Galaxy looked at Yutian and began to weigh the pros and cons in his mind. After a while, he finally made his choice. Well, since you insist, then I will allow you to see Mara. But you must promise me to be careful and not to act rashly. Kazuya looked shocked when he heard the Galaxy King's decision. He never expected that Galaxy King would actually agree to Yutian's request. However, since the Galaxy King has made a decision, he can't say anything more. Yutian also knows that it is not easy for Galaxy King to make a decision. After all, strictly speaking, this must violate certain rules and regulations of the Galactic Empire. He solemnly promised. Don't worry, I won't cause trouble to the Galactic Empire. Galaxy King nodded, with a smile on his face. In that case, you might as well stay at the Galaxy headquarters for a few more days. At that time, you can go to the Galaxy Prison with this new group of prisoners. Yutian nodded and agreed. Subsequently, under the guidance of Jake, Yutian left the conference room of Galaxy Palace and went to the room specially prepared for him at Galaxy headquarters. When Yutian and Jake disappeared completely, Kazuya finally couldn't help but raise his doubts to the Galaxy King. Why did you agree to Yutian's request? Mo Luo is our most important prisoner. If anything goes wrong, the consequences will be disastrous. Moreover, we still know nothing about Yutian's true identity and background. He is so powerful. But suddenly appeared in front of us, which is really uneasy. King Galaxy stretched out a tentacle, gently picked up the teacup in front of him, took a sip of the fragrant tea, and then spoke slowly. Kazuya, I understand your concerns. But first of all, Yutian has made great contributions to the Galactic Empire. This is a fact that cannot be ignored. Since he rejected the medal I awarded, then I will naturally give it to him in another way. Way to express our gratitude and recognition. Secondly, regarding the disappearance of Lord Zunio, Yutian is obviously a key figure. We may need his help to solve this mystery in the future. If we reject his request at this moment, how can he be willing to continue to work for us in the future? How can we help? After Kazuya heard this, although the doubts in his heart were not completely eliminated, he also understood that the Galaxy King's decision had its own reasons. He whispered, I will strengthen the surveillance and investigation of Yutian to ensure that he does not pose a threat to us. Then, he added in a deep voice. There is no such a powerful person among the people on Earth. His appearance was too sudden. Chapter 31. Jake took Yutian to a spacious and comfortable lounge. Yutian looked around, the interior furnishings were simple and elegant. Through the windows at the top, you can also see the starry universe outside. This should be a unique design of Galaxy headquarters. Yutian, this is your lounge. You can have a good rest here. Jack introduced enthusiastically. Yutian nodded and expressed his gratitude. He really needed some time to collect his thoughts and prepare for the next action. However, Gok doesn't seem to be planning to leave immediately. He stood at the door, hesitated for a moment, then turned around and looked at Yutian. Yutian, did you know about Lord Zunio's existence a long time ago? Yutian was stunned, not expecting that Jake would ask this question. He looked deeply at Jack. Although Jack usually comes across as careless, he is actually very thoughtful and has a keen sense of observation. Why do you have such a problem? Yutian asked rhetorically, trying to understand Jack's true thoughts. Jack hesitated for a moment, but finally decided to express his feelings. I can't explain clearly, but during the time I've been with you, I always feel that you seem to know everything about the universe. In addition, the changes that Master Zunyo's note produced in your hands, these are all it implies that you are anything but ordinary. After hearing this, Yushin did not directly respond to Jake's question, but smiled easily. Jake, don't think too complicated. Just know that I am your friend. Jack also smiled when he heard this. He knew that Yushin didn't want to reveal too much information about himself. As a friend, he respects Yushin's wishes. So, he spoke. Okay, I understand. You can rest first, and don't forget to attend my investiture ceremony tomorrow. Yushin nodded in agreement. Seeing that there was nothing else to explain, Jack turned and left the lounge, closing the door gently. Quietness returned to the lounge again, leaving Yutian alone. He sat quietly on the sofa, looking through the top window at the boundless starry sky, thoughtfully. The next day soon came. A bang 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 knock on the door woke Yutian up. He quickly tidied up his appearance and then opened the door. Yushin, are you ready? The awarding ceremony is about to begin. Jack outside the door asked eagerly. Yushin nodded, indicating that he was ready. So, the two of them left the lounge together and headed to the scene of the award ceremony. The investiture ceremony was held in a hall of the Galaxy Palace. When Yushin and Jack arrived at the scene, many galactic patrols and soldiers were already gathered there. The King of the Galaxy also came to the scene in person to award the medal to Gok, who was about to receive the medal. Although Yushin had made it clear that he did not need to be awarded a medal, King Galaxy still insisted that he participate in the ceremony. He believes that although Yushin declined the medal, his contribution cannot be ignored and he should be given due respect on this occasion. After the ceremony began, the Galaxy King awarded the medal to Gok and delivered a passionate speech. He strongly praised Jake's bravery and loyalty, and also expressed his gratitude to Yushin. Yushin stood in the audience, looking at the excited Jack and the Galaxy patrolmen cheering for him, and suddenly the figure of Myers in the original book flashed in his mind. That person, in order to stick to his inner justice and protect the peace of the galaxy, even gave up his identity as Angel. Maybe, this is the Galactic Patrol. Thinking of this, Yushin also applauded sincerely. Jack's investiture ceremony came to an end in a warm atmosphere. Within a few days, Yushin and Jack took the universe spaceship together and headed to the galaxy prison. This place is really desolate. After nearly a month of interstellar travel, Yushin and Jake finally arrived at their destination. Yushin took the lead to step off the spacecraft and looked around, only to see a desolate surrounding, with almost no trace of life on the barren land. At this time, a group of soldiers were already here to greet them, preparing to take into custody the new prisoners such as Dales. Jake looked at Yushin and smiled mysteriously. Let's go, just leave Dales and the others to these soldiers. I'll show you the inside of the galaxy prison. There's a whole other world there. He led Yushin through many checkpoints and all the way to the building where prisoners were held. As soon as he walked into the building, Yushin immediately understood what Jake had said before. The lights here are as bright as daytime, and all kinds of cutting-edge technological equipment can be seen everywhere. It is in sharp contrast with the desolate environment outside, like two completely different worlds. Yushin noticed that every prisoner was isolated in a transparent square room. He couldn't help but asked curiously. Is it really safe and reliable to imprison them in this way? Although Yushin knew that these prisoners were not very powerful in combat, such a method of imprisonment still seemed to be quite risky. Jake smiled and shook his head, pointing to the transparent grid rooms with a very confident expression. Don't worry, the power of every prisoner here has been sealed by the Wendigo, and their abilities have been reduced to the lowest point. Coupled with these special glass cells, it is impossible for them to escape. Yushin nodded after hearing this. The ability of this Wendigo is indeed very magical. With this layer of protection, the galactic prison in this world seems to be more secure than in the original work. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind. By the way, Jack, do you know where the power of Wendigo's seal went? Was it absorbed by this treasure, or was it sealed in the prisoner's body? Jack shook his head and replied solemnly. The treasures related to the Galactic Empire are all top secret. Except for the Galactic King and the responsible personnel, no one knows the secrets. Yushin was slightly startled when he heard this, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. You mean, besides the Wendigo, the Galactic Empire has other treasures? Jack smiled and said slowly. Yes, the Galactic Empire does have other treasures. But these are secrets among secrets, so I can't say more. Yushin heard Jake's caution from his tone and did not continue to ask further. He secretly figured out in his mind that in this Dragon Ball world, the reason why Frieza stayed away from the Galactic Empire was that in addition to being afraid of the special existence of the Galactic Prison, it was probably also inseparable from the mysterious treasures held by the Galactic Empire. At this time, Jack broke the silence. However, this is just a place where ordinary prisoners are held. Come on, I will take you to see Mara now. Chapter 32. After careful interrogation by numerous guards, Kaio led Yutian to a dark and hidden building. This building is completely different from the previous area, revealing an ancient and mysterious atmosphere. As soon as he entered the building, Yushin immediately noticed something special inside. Unlike the previous cell made of transparent glass, the prisoners here were held in cells with iron bars. Gok explained. This is the most tightly supervised area. A certain big shot personally set the restrictions. Important prisoners like Dales will eventually be moved here after initial detention. Moreover, their prison equipment is also specially crafted to be foolproof. Yushin nodded after hearing this and looked forward. In front of him is a dark corridor that leads directly to the depths of the ground. Gok continued. Mara is imprisoned at the deepest part of this corridor. Let's go, we'll be there soon. With that said, he took the lead and walked forward, followed closely by Yutian. Ding, I met the Dragon Ball plot character Mora, and I would like to ask if the host needs to be bound. Suddenly, the system's long-awaited announcement came, and Yushin felt happy. The long-awaited moment has finally arrived. Bind. Ding, the host has successfully bound Mo Luo, gained a permanent bonus to combat power, and acquired skills, power of nature, sound transmission of thought, life sense. Ding, since Mo Luo is the core plot character of Dragon Ball, the hidden reward is activated, and the host gets, Void Survival. Yushin called up his familiar panel. Name Yushin Combat Power 90,730 bound characters, Son Goku, Bulma, Kamizenin, Mara skills acquired, Turtle Style Kigong, Shocking Palm of All Nations, Mind Reading, Power of Nature, Voice Transmission of Thoughts, Life Perception Additional Rewards, Saiyan Bloodline, Earthling Bloodline, Mysterious State Hidden Rewards, Son Goku's Combat Talent, Bulma's Scientific Research Ability, Use of Chi, Fairy Bean Making, Void Survival Special Reward, Bulma's Favor. Character Evaluation, Unqualified Cannon Fodder. Yushin is very satisfied with his newly acquired skills. But he noticed that his combat power had only increased slightly, which made him feel a little confused. According to his understanding of Mora, in the original work, Mora was able to fight Super Blue when he escaped from prison, which was an extremely terrifying existence. He guessed that this might be because Mo Luo's strength was sealed by the Wendigo. With this thought, a new idea came into Yushin's mind. Do you want to help Mara break the seal? If Mo Luo can restore his strength, then his combat effectiveness will naturally soar rapidly. Thinking of this, Yushin glanced at Jake beside him and already had a plan in mind. Have new humans arrived? Tisk tisk, I actually noticed the aura of the Mayat tribe. Mara's deep voice echoed from the depths of the prison. Yutian's heart was slightly shaken. He never expected that Mo Luo also knew something about the Mayat tribe. He stepped forward, walked through the dark corridor, and in a few steps came to the cell where Mora was imprisoned, and finally saw the villain in the original work with his own eyes. Mo Luo's hands were tightly tied by special iron chains. Those iron chains shone with mysterious light, obviously not ordinary things. His face already looked very old and deeply wrinkled, but his eyes were like two bright stars, as sharp as ever, exuding a majesty that could not be ignored. Yutian stared at Mo Luo quietly, speechless. Mo Luo is also observing Yutian secretly. Jack stood beside the two of them, feeling that there seemed to be an indescribable tense atmosphere permeating the scene. Finally, Mora took the lead in breaking the silence. I heard that there is a human who wants to see me, I guess it must be you. Yushin nodded and answered. It's me. Mara spoke slowly. Looking at your attire, you don't seem to be a galactic patrol officer. Why are you looking for me? You know, I don't have that much free time. Yushin smiled lightly. I have heard about you in the past and thought you were so great. But when I saw you today, to be honest, I was a little disappointed. Although Yutian's voice was as calm as water, Mo Luo keenly caught the sarcasm in it. He snorted coldly and responded. If Wendigo hadn't sealed my power, how could I have been judged by a junior like you? Yushin chuckled. Oh? You mean you were very powerful in your heyday? When Mo Luo heard this, a sneer appeared on his face. If it weren't for the Supreme Kai Guy's new move, the universe would already be under my rule. Yutian knew in his heart that what Mo Luo said might not be unreasonable. However, if his unscrupulous behavior of destroying planets is excessive, it will inevitably cause damage to the balance of the universe. If it affects the human level of the universe, it may alert Beerus, the God of Destruction. It was before. Yushin spoke slowly. If you say this now, it will only make people laugh. When Mara heard this, a fierce light flashed in his eyes. He responded with a cold tone. Did you come here just to say this? Sooner or later, I will make you pay for your words and deeds today. Seeing that the heat was almost over, Yutian stopped stimulating Mo Luo. He changed the subject and asked. You just mentioned the Maya tribe. What, do you know them well? Morris snorted contemptuously. Why should I tell you? Yutian did not answer, but silently took out the spiritual tree seeds and displayed them in front of Mo Luo. Look what this is. Mo Luo's eyes fell on the seed subconsciously, and then his eyes lit up and he seemed quite excited. This is the spirit tree seed. No wonder you have the aura of the Maya tribe on you. This kind of thing can only be found in the place of origin. Where did you get it? Yutian was secretly surprised, but remained calm on the surface. It seems you know a lot, even the place of origin. Mo Luo stared at Yutian and asked eagerly. Boy, tell me quickly, where did you get this spiritual tree seed? Yushin didn't hide anything and simply talked about Dales. After hearing this, Mara murmured to himself. I didn't expect that there are still people who have the method to get to the place of origin. Yushin said slowly. I have told you everything that needs to be said. Now is it your turn to answer my question? Why do you know about the Maya tribe and the place of origin? A hint of cunning flashed in Mara's eyes. I never promised to exchange information with you. You said all this voluntarily. Why should I tell you? Yushin sneered in his heart, but it didn't show on his face. He spoke to Mara through his thoughts. What if I help you lift the seal and help you escape from the galactic prison? Chapter 33. Mara quickly responded with a telepathic voice, his voice revealing unconcealable excitement. What did you say? You want to help me break the seal and help me escape from this galactic prison? Yushin replied in a firm tone. Yes, you heard that right. At this moment, Mo Luo felt as if his heart was in turmoil, and he could no longer maintain his former composure and calmness. He couldn't help but glance at Jake, who was standing next to Yushin. From Jack's blank expression, he judged that Jack knew nothing about this matter. Mara continued to communicate with Yutian through thoughts. You must have conditions for helping me, right? Tell me. As an old monster who has experienced thousands of years of vicissitudes, he will naturally not naively think that Yushin will help him unconditionally. Yushin smiled slightly and said via voice transmission. To be honest, I intend to go to the place of origin in the future. I hope you can help me by then. Of course, this was a lie that Yushin made up casually. His real purpose is to improve his strength by relying on the system bound to Mo Luo. When Mo Luo heard this, he sneered secretly in his heart. Naturally, he would not completely believe Yutian's words, but he also understood that he did not have much choice at this moment. As long as he can escape from the galaxy prison and regain his former strength, no matter what Yushin's purpose is, he will not be able to pose a threat to him. Therefore, after pondering for a while, he transmitted the message. The place of origin is the most mysterious place in the universe. Since you intend to go there, I will reveal some secrets to you. When Yutian heard Mo Luo's words, his heart was lifted. He knew that in order to regain his freedom, Mara was finally willing to share information about the place of origin. Mara fell into memories, and his voice began to become calmer. That happened tens of millions of years ago. I was just an ordinary warrior at that time. Unfortunately, I was seriously injured while fighting for treasure. Later, I escaped on the universe spaceship and happened to land at the place of origin. It's a magical world there. I learned from talking to the locals that they call themselves the Maya tribe. Yushin interrupted at this time. Are all the people in the origin land a Maya tribe? Mo Luo shook his head and replied via voice transmission. Basically, they are, but I heard later that there are some other races that seem to be hostile to the Maya tribe. However, I have never seen them when I was in the place of origin. How strong are those Maya tribesmen? Yushin asked again. Mo Luo raised his head, glanced at Yutian, and said in a voice message. You will know this naturally when you go there. After hearing this, Yutian understood in his heart that this was a backup plan left by Mo Luo for him, and it was impossible for him to tell everything he knew now. Mara continued to transmit messages and narrate his experiences. Later, I was quickly taken to the leader of the Mayat tribe. Yushin noticed that when the leader of the Mayat tribe was mentioned, there was a kind of religious fanaticism in Mara's eyes. This kind of enthusiasm is exactly the same as that of Dale's before. This made Yushin secretly alert. Mara continued to speak with his thoughts. The leader of the Mayat tribe, that unfathomable being, once gave me several rare treasures that can enhance my strength. As he spoke, his eyes turned to Yutian unconsciously. Among them, including the fruits of the spirit tree, I have eaten dozens of them. Hearing this, Yutian nodded slightly. The fruits of the spiritual tree play a huge role in improving strength. If the leader of the Mayat tribe wanted to improve Mara's strength, he would naturally have to feed him the fruits of the spirit tree. However, the fruits of the spiritual tree need to take root on a living planet to absorb the nutrients of the planet. Through the last trip to the planet Kabacha, we can see that in this Dragon Ball world, a planet can only bear one fruit. I don't know how the Mayat tribe accumulated so many spiritual tree fruits. Mo Luo paused and continued to transmit the message. As time goes by, my strength gradually increases and reaches unprecedented heights. When the clan leader saw this, he told me that I could leave the place of origin. So, I took a universe spaceship and left that mysterious world, and I never went back. After hearing this, Yushin frowned slightly, and doubts arose in his heart. He sent a message and asked, "Is this the end? The Mayat tribe did not make any demands on you, such as tasks such as finding the originator. They just improved your strength for no reason and then let you leave." Yushin felt that there must be a deeper conspiracy hidden behind this incident. He didn't believe that there would be such a good thing in the world. Mora shook his head slightly. They did not make any request. Like you, I was full of doubts and asked the clan leader this question. However, he just told me that everything was destined and that I could just let go and do what I like. Speaking of this, Mo Luo's mood suddenly became excited. What a pity. In the end, I was accidentally attacked by that despicable villain Supreme Kai, and that's why I was imprisoned in this dark cell. A trace of hatred flashed in his eyes, but it quickly disappeared. After saying this, he turned to look at Yushin, with a trace of expectation on his face. After listening to Mo Luo's story, Yutian already had a preliminary understanding of the place of origin. But he also understood that one could not believe everything Mara said. There must be truth and lies in it, and he needed to make his own judgment on these. After Yutian thought for a moment, he sent a message to Mo Luo. "This cell is not strong for me, I can try to destroy it. But, do you have any solution to the Wendigo seal?" For him, the most important thing is to let Mara regain his strength first. After hearing this, Mo Luo's eyes flashed, revealing a bit of depth. The Galactic Patrol is afraid of the recovery of my strength, so they use Wendigo to seal me every few decades to ensure that my power remains sealed. However, after countless seals, I have also figured out countermeasures. As long as you can help me escape from this cage first, and then hand the Wendigo into my hands, I will have a way to lift the seal. Yushin frowned when he heard this. It may not be difficult to help you get out of trouble, but it is a difficult problem to hand the Wendigo into your hands. After all, the Wendigo is the treasure of the Galactic Empire, and it is difficult for me to obtain it easily, let alone send it to you secretly. Mo Luo sneered and said through a message. "What's so difficult about this? Just kill all the Galactic Patrolmen and snatch the Wendigo. I know your concerns. The Galactic Empire hides a treasure with infinite power. Even I have to deal with it carefully, but later I only then did I realize that that treasure can only be used within the confines of the Galaxy Prison. As long as you act outside this range, there will be no problems." Yushin was stunned after hearing this. He didn't expect that the Galactic Empire actually hid a treasure that even Mora was afraid of. The news did surprise him, but he quickly regained his composure. Yutian did not adopt Mo Luo's suggestion. He secretly revealed his thoughts to Mara. Chapter 34. After hearing Yushin's plan, Mo Luo fell into a brief silence. His eyes were deep, as if he was weighing the pros and cons. Then, he spoke to Yushin through sound transmission. "If I follow your plan, I'm afraid I will have to wait patiently for a while." When Yushin heard this, a faint smile appeared on his lips, and he also responded via voice transmission. You have been waiting for such a long time, and you probably won't care about waiting for just a moment and a half longer. After hearing this, Mara couldn't help but sneer. He has been imprisoned in this galactic prison for tens of millions of years, and the years of hard work have already given him a patience beyond ordinary people. However, this time it involved his own escape plan, and a long-lost anxiety inevitably emerged in his heart. What I am worried about is not the length of time, Mo Luo said slowly, but I am afraid that you will change over time and forget today's promise. However, I have an important piece of information about the Maya tribe that I have not yet told you. I will share this information with you only if you really help me out. Speaking of this, Mo Luo paused, seemingly giving Yutian time to digest. Then, he added. And if you can really help me escape from here successfully, no matter what your wish is, even if you want to be the king of the Galactic Empire, I will help you realize it. Naturally, Yutian would not believe Mo Luo's promise. In the original work, Cullenberry helped Mora escape from the galaxy prison, and later collected the Dragon Balls of Namek for him. In the end, he ended up being killed by Mara himself. Mara is a man of no credibility whatsoever. However, Yutian did not expose Mara's false face on the spot. He just nodded slightly to express his understanding, and explained a few key details to Mara. Then, he turned around and signaled to Jack that they could leave this place. Jack, who was standing aside, was not a fool. Although he could not hear the voice conversation between Yutian and Mo Luo, he had already noticed some clues from their expressions and behavior. He knew in his heart that some kind of tacit understanding or agreement must have been reached between the two. However, out of trust in Yutian, Jake did not choose to say anything at this moment, but remained silent. At this moment, seeing Yutian indicating that he could leave, he obediently led Yutian out of this dark cell. The two walked through the many corridors of the galactic prison and came to a galactic patrol lounge. There was no one in the room, and the quiet atmosphere made Jack finally couldn't help but break the silence. Yutian, you seem to be communicating with Mo Luo in a way that I can't hear. Yutian nodded calmly and did not avoid Jake's question. Yes, Gok, we did have some private communications. But please rest assured, there is absolutely no threat to the security of the Galactic Empire. After hearing this, Jake frowned slightly, showing some concern. Yutian, of course I trust you, but I'm worried that you will be deceived by Mara. That guy is a villain who does all kinds of evil and is very good at deceiving people. When Yutian heard this, he smiled softly to show his relief. Don't worry, Jack, I know what's going on. Jack seemed to have something to say, but he was hesitant. Finally, he decided to tell the truth. According to regulations, I must record the meeting between you and Mora in detail and objectively, and report it to the Galaxy headquarters. After hearing this, Yutian's expression remained calm. Just record it truthfully. Jack nodded upon hearing this. He understood that this report might mention the secret exchange between Yutian and Mo Luo, which might have some adverse impact on Yutian. But as a galactic patrol officer, he has the responsibility to remain objective and truthful. But before he handed in the report, he felt it was necessary to inform Yutian in advance. Jake saw that Yutian didn't mind this, and he felt relieved. He returned to his usual carefree attitude and said casually to Yutian. Yutian, you can have a good rest here. I have prepared the universe spaceship for you to go to the Earth. When Yutian heard this, he was slightly surprised. Why, won't you come back to Earth with me? Ties is still waiting for you. Jack waved his hand, showing a little helplessness on his face. I won't go back. There are too many things going on recently, and I can't spare any free time at all. Yutian understood in his heart, and he spoke slowly. Is it still related to Master Zunyo's matter? Jack looked worried and his voice became heavier. More than that. Do you remember when Darius mentioned Slug's return to Namek? Yutian was stunned when he heard this. He did remember this. He suddenly thought that if Slug really returned to Namek, and Frieza went to look for the Dragon Balls as in the original plot, wouldn't a conflict between the two be inevitable? Moreover, according to his understanding, these two people seem to be natural enemies in this Dragon Ball world. What, will Slug's return to Namek have any impact on the Galactic Empire? Hearing this, Jack couldn't help but sigh. According to the information we obtained, some changes occurred on Namek. Slag was summoned back by the Great Elder of Namek. After that, it was like disappearing from the world, and there is no news about him anymore. Yutian frowned slightly, with a look of doubt on his face, and spoke. Dales had mentioned that something happened on Namek before, but he didn't expect that the situation would be so serious that even people like Slug were involved. Does the Galaxy headquarters have any clues about this? Jack shook his head helplessly and sighed. Nowadays, the Galactic Patrol has been exhausted, and the Galactic headquarters is really unable to send more personnel to investigate the situation on Namek. Yutian nodded to express his understanding and continued. However, from a certain perspective, Slug's disappearance may not be entirely a bad thing for the Galactic Empire. At least, his departure may restore some peace to the universe. However, Jack smiled bitterly and shook his head. It's not as simple as you think. There was a deep helplessness and indignation in his tone. Although Slag himself has left, he has left behind a huge force. Frieza, a cunning guy, also took the opportunity to launch a fierce attack on Slag's remaining forces. This battle has led to the loss of countless innocent lives. Speaking of this, Jack couldn't help but show a trace of anger on his face. His hands were clenched into fists, as if he felt injustice and regret for the lives lost. When Yutian heard the news, his heart moved. This might be an opportunity for him to get close to Frieza. Chapter 35. Yutian thought for a moment and finally decided to return to Earth first. After all, it has been a while since I left the Earth. Jack didn't continue Frieza's topic, and after a few words with Yutian, he left. In the blink of an eye, a new day comes quietly. Yutian didn't stop any longer. He simply said hello to Jack and boarded the universe spaceship heading to Earth. Just listen to the sound of boom. The spaceship cuts through the stars and flies towards the distant Earth. 750 AD Zidu, Bulma's house. As the sun set, Yutian stood in front of Bulma's house, feeling an inexplicable excitement in his heart. This is where he and Bulma spent happy time. Now that I'm back again, I feel like I'm home. He gently opened the door and walked in. Everything remains the same, with familiar furnishings and a familiar atmosphere. He looked around and found that Bulma was not in the living room, so he quietly walked to her bedroom. The bedroom door was ajar. Yutian gently opened it and saw Bulma sitting in front of the window, seemingly worried. Yutian stood quietly at the door, and after a moment, he said softly. Bulma, I'm back. Bulma heard the sound and turned around suddenly. When she saw Yutian standing at the door, her eyes widened with an expression of disbelief on her face. She could hardly believe her eyes. Yutian. Bulma's voice was trembling. Are you back? Yutian smiled and said, Yes, I'm back. He said as he raised the bag in his hand. I also brought you some things. Although not as much as your sister brings every time she comes back, it is still a little bit of my thoughts. When Bulma heard this, she chuckled, and a trace of emotion flashed in her eyes. She did not take the bag, but stood up, walked to Yutian, and looked at him deeply. Just come back. Yutian looked at Bulma, and a warm current surged in his heart. He reached out his hand and hugged her gently. Let me tell you about my experience this time. Yutian spoke slowly and began to describe the various experiences he and Jake had experienced. He spoke very carefully, and Bulma also listened very carefully. However, when she heard the end, Bulma's hands were tightly clasped together, and her expression became a little lost. She looked up at Yutian, with complicated emotions flashing in her eyes. It's a pity that I'm not good at fighting and can't accompany you. Yutian looked at Bulma and understood how she felt. He smiled softly and reached out to stroke her hair. That's not necessarily the case. Bulma raised her head in surprise and looked into Yutian's eyes. What, do you want to teach me how to practice? To be honest, I have no confidence in myself at all. Yutian smiled and shook his head. Although I am good at fighting, I know nothing about teaching others how to practice. Bulma was a little disappointed after hearing this and whispered. Then what do you mean? There was a trace of confusion in her words. The corners of Yutian's mouth raised slightly, revealing a deep smile. He slowly stretched out a finger and began to gather the surging natural power in his body. The power seemed to be summoned and gradually gathered at his fingertips, forming a bright energy ball. Then, he gently nodded towards Bulma. The energy ball that had been accumulated for a long time quickly rushed into Bulma's body. Bulma felt a warm current surge through her body instantly. Yutian, what's going on? What did you do to me? Bulma's eyes widened, feeling the power surging within her body, and she asked in surprise. Yutian explained with a smile. This is a new skill I have mastered. It can transfer part of my energy to you, thus improving your strength. The skills mentioned by Yutian are exactly the power of nature that he has mastered. This ability allows him to transfer his energy to others, thereby enhancing their combat effectiveness. And Yutian himself has a binding system. When he transfers energy to the bound Dragon Ball characters, his own strength will be further improved. In addition, this ability also gives him the ability to control the natural forces on the planet. However, Yutian also discovered that he could not improve himself by absorbing the energy of the planet like Mo Lo in the original work. He tried it on the Earth and found that absorbing the energy of the Earth could only be used to restore his own state. However, thankfully, as long as he is on the planet, he can absorb the enemy's energy. This has undoubtedly become one of his trump cards. This won't have any negative impact on you, right? Bulma felt a little worried when she heard this. Yutian smiled easily. Don't worry, it just consumes some of my energy, but I can recover quickly. Bulma felt the power in her body and waved her fist excitedly. Yutian, I feel so powerful now. Yutian nodded and said, yes, your current combat power is about 500, and you are already considered a top expert on the Earth. Bulma is limited by her own physique, and Yutian can only increase her combat power to this level. Bulma said happily. If I had known this, I would have signed up for the #1 martial arts tournament in the world. Yutian was a little surprised. Oh? You also know about the #1 martial arts conference in the world? Of course, Bulma smiled proudly, you are a martial artist, how could I not pay attention to these? Yutian knew in his heart that this was what happened. He asked immediately. Then do you know when the latest martial arts conference will be held? When Bulma mentioned it, he immediately became interested. It has already started today. Bulma replied, Goku also signed up. He even asked you specifically if you would participate. Start today? Yutian asked in surprise. Then, he turned and looked at the clock on the wall. Isn't it over now? Bulma looked at Yutian strangely. Today is just the preliminaries, the quarterfinals will just start tomorrow, and the finals won't be until the day after tomorrow. Yutian was stunned when he heard this. It turns out that the martial arts tournament competition system in this world is slightly different from the original work. He said excitedly. Are you interested? Why don't we go over there and have a look? I'm also catching up with Goku. Bulma nodded, her eyes shining with anticipation. Of course I'm interested. As long as she can be with Yutian, she will be very happy no matter what she does. Yutian smiled and said, then let's set off early tomorrow morning. Bulma nodded in agreement. Seeing that nothing happened anymore, Yutian was ready to leave. Bulma's cheeks suddenly turned slightly red. Are you leaving now? There was a hint of reluctance and attachment in his words. Yutian was stunned when he heard this. Seeing Bulma's shy expression, he immediately understood what she was thinking. There was a hint of joking in his eyes and he said deliberately. Yeah, why are you staying here if you don't leave? Bulma was a little ashamed by Yutian's words. She thought her hint was obvious enough, but she didn't expect that Yutian didn't seem to understand. However, just when she felt embarrassed, Yutian suddenly showed a naughty smile. I'm going to take a shower and I'll be back soon. Hearing Yutian's words, Bulma breathed a sigh of relief. She glared at Yutian and turned away pretending to be angry, but she couldn't help feeling happy in her heart. The next day, Yutian and Bulma arrived at the world's #1 martial arts conference early. At this moment, it is crowded and lively. Yutian looked around, feeling the exciting atmosphere. He smiled at Bulma. I don't know who the top 8 will be this time. It's really exciting. Hearing this, Bulma smiled and took out the latest promotional poster from her bag and handed it to Yutian. Yutian took the poster and saw that it listed the brief introductions of each contestant in detail. The most important thing is that at the end of the poster, a carefully designed competition table is attached. Game 1, Chenglong vs Son Goku. Game 2, Klin vs Namua. Game 3, King Jaiba vs Mummy. Game 4, Lanfang vs Blue. Chapter 36. After reading the battle list, Yutian felt a little surprised. There are still some differences between the contestants who entered the top 8 this time and the original work. The first thing he noticed was that Yamcha was not among the top 8. Yutian secretly speculated that this might be related to his earlier encounter with Son Goku. That chance encounter may have indirectly changed Yamcha's fate. As a result, he was unable to team up with Bulma and Son Goku to embark on an adventure to find the Dragon Balls as in the original work. Secondly, Mummy and General Blue also came to participate in this world's best martial arts conference. I don't know what their purpose is. Bulma asked softly with a hint of cunning in her eyes. Guess who will be the winner of this competition? Yutian smiled slightly when he heard this. The champion is naturally Goku. His strength has already surpassed the other 7. He recalled that when he first came to this world, he had many discussions with Son Goku. By the time he met Bulma, Son Goku's combat power had reached 100. Now under the careful guidance of Kame Immortal, his strength will inevitably become even more terrifying. However, Bulma didn't think so. She chuckled. I think King Jaiba is more likely to win the championship. According to the information, he once made his opponent give up the championship in a martial arts competition just by relying on his momentum. When Yutian heard this, his heart moved. I don't know how this King Jaiba's strength compares to Satan. Suddenly, a hearty laughter interrupted their discussion. According to me, the champion this time is none other than the mummy. Yushin heard the sound and went away. When he saw the speaker, he was slightly startled. The person who spoke was none other than Yamcha, and beside him was his little follower Puer. Ding! When you meet Yamcha, a character in the Dragon Ball plot, you can directly transform the host into a combat power of 18. Can the host be transformed? Yushin was shocked when he heard the system report. He originally inferred based on the original work that Yamcha's combat power at this moment should be at least about 70. However, to his surprise, the Yamcha in this world was actually weaker than the original. Excuse me, who are you? Bulma looked at the approaching Yamcha and asked curiously. Yamcha laughed and introduced himself enthusiastically. Beautiful lady, my name is Yamcha, and this is my friend Puer. Nice to meet you. There are not many girls who are interested in fighting. Bulma responded politely. Really, thank you for saying that. My name is Bulma, and next to me is my boyfriend Yushin. Yushin stood aside, watching Yamcha talking to Bulma, and suddenly felt an inexplicable discomfort in his heart. He interrupted abruptly and said to Yamcha. Your name is Yamcha? I seem to have seen this name on the government's wanted list. That person is a robber. It can't be you. When Bulma heard that Yamcha turned out to be a bandit, her favor ability dropped sharply, and she subconsciously moved her body to keep distance from him. Seeing this, Yamcha scratched his head in embarrassment and explained with a smile. That was all in the past. I have changed my ways now. Yushin continued to ask. Oh? What do you do now? Yamcha chuckled. I am now doing security work escorting supplies, together with my girlfriend. When Yushin heard this, he was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that Yamcha had already got a girlfriend. No wonder there was no trace of shyness or nervousness on his face when he faced Bulma now. Why do you think the mummy will be the champion? Yushin asked with interest. After hearing this, Yamcha responded calmly. Because I lost to him in the preliminary round. Yushin suddenly realized that it was not that Yamcha did not participate in the competition, but was eliminated due to lack of strength. Bulma interrupted at this time, her voice a little confused. He eliminated you because you were not strong enough. It has nothing to do with him winning the championship. Puer hurriedly explained. Master Yamcha was once a well-known master, and his strength should not be underestimated. Being able to defeat him naturally shows that he has the strength to win the championship. After hearing this, Yushin felt funny in his heart and said nothing more. Bulma chuckled lightly, with a hint of ridicule in her voice. I didn't realize it, but it turns out you are still the runner-up. Yamcha felt his cheeks heat up slightly when he heard Bulma's words. Bite as the crisp bell rang, the prelude to the world's best martial arts conference officially kicked off. The referee, a man in sunglasses, held a microphone, stood majestically in the center of the ring, and announced loudly. Dear viewers who have come from afar, you have been waiting for a long time. The quarterfinals of the 21st World No. 1 Martial Arts Tournament are now grandly begun. In the first duel, Cheng Long faces Son Goku. Please make your debut with these two players. As the referee finished speaking, thunderous applause suddenly erupted from the audience. The atmosphere at the scene reached a climax instantly. Goku, come on! Bulma stood in the crowd, waving her arms and cheering for Son Goku. Yamcha heard Bulma's shout and turned his head. Are you a fan of Son Goku? Bulma shook her head. Not a fan, Yushin and I are both friends of Son Goku. Yamcha looked surprised. I didn't expect that you are actually friends of Son Goku. He is the disciple of Kame Sennin. Do you know the martial arts master Kamehameha? Yutian smiled faintly. Kamehameha, he must be my defeated general. Yamcha was stunned after hearing this, and then burst into laughter. He reached out and patted Yushin's shoulder. Ha ha ha, friend, I didn't expect you to be quite good at telling jokes. Hearing this, Bulma frowned slightly, feeling a little displeased. Yutian is not joking. What he said is true. Turtle Immortal has indeed lost to him before. Yamcha kept laughing, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world, with tears in his eyes. Ha ha ha, I believe it, I believe you. Seeing Yamcha's disapproving look, Bulma felt even more unhappy. She didn't have a good impression of this desert bandit to begin with, but now her impression of him has dropped to the bottom. Bulma snorted coldly and looked away. Obviously, she was too lazy to say another word to Yamcha. Yushin felt happy when he saw that Bulma hated Yamcha even more. Bite the crisp bell rang, attracting everyone's attention to the competition field. The referee, a man in sunglasses, stood in the center of the ring. He held a microphone and he announced loudly. The competition officially begins. Chapter 37. After the man in sunglasses announced the start of the competition, he jumped down from the competition field and walked to the sidelines, ready to start his passionate explanation. At this moment, only Son Goku and Kamehameha were left standing opposite each other on the huge arena. A tense atmosphere began to fill the air, the audience in the audience held their breath, and all eyes were focused on the two people. Turtle Immortal had a serious expression on his face, as if he had a well-thought-out plan. He slowly stretched out his right hand, palm upward, making an invitation gesture. Young man, please go ahead. Son Goku smiled when he heard this. Old uncle, then I'm not welcome. As soon as he finished speaking, he had a figure like the wind, and he quickly approached and swung his fist towards Turtle Immortal. This punch was extremely fast, as if lightning streaked across the night sky, causing a sharp sound of breaking through the sky. However, Turtle Immortal was not in a hurry. He turned slightly and skillfully dodged the blow. Son Goku missed a single hit and was not discouraged. He immediately took advantage of the situation and turned his fist into an elbow, and struck Turtle Immortal quickly and violently in the ribs. This blow is powerful and heavy, and if it is hit, the consequences will be disastrous. Facing the fierce offensive, Turtle Immortal sighed in admiration. Yes, I know how to adapt to the situation. As he spoke, he stretched out his rock-solid palms and firmly blocked Son Goku's elbow. Seeing this, Son Goku clenched his left hand into a fist. With lightning speed, he struck Kamehameha in the face again. This punch was fast and sharp, aiming to win in one fell swoop. The fist wind roared, extremely fierce. Turtle Immortal looked calm. I saw his feet swaying, and his figure instantly retreated several meters. Son Goku's punch failed again, but Kamehameha still stood there, looking at him with a smile. Facing the exciting showdown in the ring, the audience was silent at first, and then became excited. It's wonderful, it's so wonderful. I can hardly see the two contestants clearly. The man in sunglasses held a microphone and shouted excitedly. Yamcha touched his chin, a hint of appreciation flashed in his eyes. As expected of a disciple of Turtle Immortal, even I can't see clearly at this speed. Bulma turned to Yushin and said. Goku seems to be just testing, he doesn't seem to be using his full strength. Yushin nodded and looked at the arena casually. Yes, but Kamehameha is just defensive. He is also testing Goku's strength. When Yamcha heard the two people's comments, his expression was stunned. At this time, Son Goku on the ring suddenly stopped smiling. He looked at Turtle Immortal and said seriously. Old uncle, you are very powerful. Turtle Immortal also responded, young man, you are not bad either. Son Goku took a deep breath. Then I will get serious next time. Kamehameha nodded and smiled at Son Goku. Come on, let me see your strength. Son Goku's expression was solemn, and then his feet flashed and he disappeared in an instant on the ring. This change immediately caused the audience to exclaim. What happened to player Son Goku? Why did he disappear? The man in sunglasses shouted in shock. Yamcha also widened his eyes and looked around. What's going on? I can't see him at all. Bulma shook her head at this time and said. It's not disappearing, but an illusion created by relying on exaggerated rapid movement. His current speed has surpassed the eyesight of ordinary people. Yushin nodded and said with a smile, you are right, that's the truth. Yamcha was surprised again when he heard the conversation between the two. He turned to look at them and asked with confusion on his face. Can you see Son Goku? Bulma glanced at him lightly and said nothing, while Yutian smiled and nodded. On the ring, Kame-sennin's expression finally became solemn. He looked around, seemingly looking for Son Goku. Suddenly, Turtle Immortal shouted loudly. Here! Before he finished speaking, he punched hard to the left side of his body. Bang! A loud bang followed. Kame-sennin's fist actually hit Son Goku accurately. Son Goku fell heavily against the wall of the ring. Kame-sennin was not prepared to give Son Goku a chance to breathe. As soon as he moved, he rushed in front of Son Goku like an arrow from a string. Immediately afterwards, there was another sharp kick. Just when he thought he was about to succeed, he unexpectedly found that his leg had passed through Son Goku's body and the kick had missed. He looked in shock and saw that Son Goku's figure had become blurry. It turned out that it was just an afterimage. I'm careless, it's an afterimage fist. Turtle Immortal exclaimed. He immediately understood that Son Goku had just been hit by him as a way to lure the enemy. I'm on top of you. Son Goku jumped into the air at some point. He combined his hands into a fist and struck Kame-sennin with thunderous force. However, just when he thought he was about to succeed, he found that the figure of Kame Immortal had become blurry. It turned out to be just an afterimage. You think I can't see your afterimage fist? This is my special skill. Kame-sennin's voice sounded in Son Goku's ears. It turned out that he had already quietly arrived behind Son Goku. Without hesitation, he kicked Son Goku in the back. Only this time, Son Goku's figure became blurry again. Another afterimage. Oops. Turtle Immortal felt bad. He didn't expect that Son Goku would use afterimage fist twice in a row. I sighed secretly in my heart and couldn't help but admire Son Goku's fighting talent. Hehe, old uncle, don't talk nonsense, this is my master Kame-sennin's unique skill. Before he finished speaking, Son Goku instantly appeared on the left side of Kame-senrin. He suddenly exerted force and punched Kame-senrin in the abdomen. The power of this punch was beyond imagination, and Turtle Immortal felt a pain in his abdomen. Then, he was instantly lifted away by an irresistible momentum and fell heavily outside the ring. When the audience witnessed this scene, they exclaimed one after another, and the scene was boiling for a while. Contestant Cheng Long fell out of the ring. Contestant Son Goku wins this match. The man in sunglasses announced the result of the game loudly. The audience burst into thunderous applause and praises one after another. Turtle Immortal stood up calmly, patted the dust on his body, and said with a smile. I didn't expect that I would lose like this. Goku, you are indeed very powerful. Son Goku walked to the edge of the ring and knelt down with concern. Old uncle, you are also very amazing. I just won by luck. Turtle Immortal waved his hand. This is not a fluke. I'm afraid the last punch is your real strength. I can feel the strength of that punch. It knocked me out of the ring without causing any harm to me. It seems that your strength has actually been far above me. Son Goku smiled and didn't say much. Goku won, that's great. Bulma cheered for joy under the ring, her excitement beyond words. Yutian smiled and nodded. Yes, Goku's performance is very good. It's a pity that Cheng Long still has many moves that he hasn't had the chance to use. Bulma asked doubtfully, you seem to know Cheng Long very well. Yutian smiled mysteriously and did not answer. At this moment, the voice of the host in sunglasses sounded. Friends from the audience, what follows is an equally exciting second match between Klin and Nemu. Please let the two players make their debut. There was another burst of warm applause from the audience. However, slowly, a trace of restlessness began to appear in the audience. I saw that Nemo had already stood on the ring early and was ready. However, Klin on the other side did not appear for a long time. Yutian suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Chapter 38. Since Klin has not appeared in the ring for a long time, the audience has begun to commotion. It's really strange. Could it be that Klin felt that there was no hope of winning the championship, so he gave up on his own initiative? Yamcha stood under the ring, frowning and talking to himself. Yutian's face was solemn and his eyes were fixed on the arena. He knew very well the character of Klin in the original work and would never give up for this reason. Klin's delay in showing up must be due to some unforeseen accident. A strange idea even came to Yutian's mind. Could it be that Piccolo arrived early and sent Dan Balin to snatch the Dragon Balls? At this time, seeing that the audience was losing patience, the man in sunglasses picked up the microphone and announced loudly. It seems that player Clin has encountered some trouble, so we will now start the 5-second countdown. If player Clin does not show up again, this game will be judged as player Nemu's victory. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Congratulations to Nemu for winning this game. There were boos and comments in the audience. Nemu stood on the ring, looking a little at a loss. He didn't expect that he would win in this way. Yushin turned to Bulma and said, "Bulma, I have to leave for a while, you can stay here and continue watching the game." Bulma immediately took Yushin's hand and asked worriedly, "What happened?" "I want to go with you." Yushin looked at Yamcha who looked relaxed next to him, thought for a moment, and then nodded in agreement. "Okay, then you come with me." Yutian didn't care about the surprised looks of the people around him. He jumped into the air and flew away in a certain direction. Upon seeing this, Bulma followed closely behind without hesitation, chasing after him in the air. Yamcha was so shocked when he witnessed this scene that he could hardly open his mouth from ear to ear. Can actually be able to fly? What is the origin of these two people? He touched his chin and thought to himself. They are all friends of Son Goku, and Son Goku is a disciple of Kame Sennin. Could it be that this is the flying technique taught to them by Kame Sennin? It seems that I should also consider becoming a disciple of Kame Sennin and learn this flying technique. Wouldn't it be more convenient and faster to do security work in the future? Yushin came to a less traveled path and stopped a hurried figure. He looked at the person in front of him and asked, "Teacher Wutian, are you planning to go back to look for Clin?" At this time, Gaixianren still maintained the appearance of Cheng Long, and because of his eagerness to seek disciples, he did not deny it. "Oh, it's Yutian. I didn't expect you to see it. I am indeed planning to go back to find Clin now." After saying that, he took off his disguise. Bulma was surprised to find that the Cheng Long she had just met in the competition was actually the Turtle Immortal. She secretly glared at Yutian. It seemed like she was blaming him for not telling her the secret before. Kame Sennin looked at Bulma, and after looking at her carefully for a long time, he smiled and spoke. "Bulma, you have changed so much. You have even mastered the air dance technique, which is really amazing." Bulma lowered her head and responded humbly. "This is what Yushin taught me yesterday." Turtle Immortal was stunned when he heard this and sighed with emotion. "Learned it in one day? Your cultivation talent is really amazing." Bulma smiled and explained, "It's all Yushin's good teaching." Yushin interrupted their conversation and said seriously, "Okay, let's talk about this later. Let's discuss how to find Clin." Turtle Immortal felt a little surprised after hearing Yutian's words. "You and Clin have never met before, so you didn't expect to care so much about him." Yushin attaches great importance to Clin, on the one hand, because Clin himself is his favorite Dragon Ball character. But more importantly, Clin's disappearance always brought him a strong sense of uneasiness. Bulma stood aside thinking and asked tentatively. Could it be that Clin accidentally overslept today and missed the game? Turtle Immortal immediately shook his head in denial. "It's impossible. He went to the martial arts competition with me and Goku, but I didn't see him before the competition." Upon hearing this, Yushin nodded silently. Bulma continued to ask, "Then is it possible that he left early?" Turtle Immortal frowned and said in a deep voice. "I think this possibility is unlikely. Moreover, I also discovered a strange thing." "What happened?" Bulma asked eagerly. Kamizenran whispered, "Do you still remember the player named Blue? I noticed that he is also missing." "Blue is missing too." Only then did Yushin interject, with a hint of surprise in his tone. Turtle Immortal looked at Yushin with a puzzled expression. "You seem to know something about this Blue." Yushin nodded, his expression solemn. "Yes, I know him. He is a small leader of the Red Ribbon Legion." Bulma exclaimed, her tone full of confusion. "Blue turns out to be a member of the Red Ribbon Legion. How did the staff of the Martial Arts Conference review it? Let such a dangerous person sneak into the competition?" When the Turtle Immortal heard this, he frowned. "The Red Ribbon Legion? Did they kidnap Clin? But what is their purpose in doing this? Dragon Ball, maybe they are here for the Dragon Ball." Yushin suddenly spoke. "This Dragon Ball world is slightly different from the original work. It has been more than a year since he last used Dragon Ball in this martial arts competition. At this time, the Dragon Ball has long been restored. However, although Yutian said this, he felt in his heart that things were definitely not that simple. When the turtle immortal heard this, a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. He also knows about Dragon Ball. At this moment, hearing Yutian's speculation, he couldn't help but nod in agreement. It's very possible. Goku has brought the 4-star bead this time. If the Red Ribbon Legion finds out, they will definitely not miss this opportunity. Yushin turned to look at Bulma and asked, Bulma, do you still have your Dragon Ball radar with you? Upon hearing this, Bulma threw out the magic capsule, transformed into a huge backpack, and quickly took out the Dragon Ball radar. However, when she activated the Dragon Ball radar, her face suddenly became ugly. Yushin, the Dragon Ball radar seems to have malfunctioned, and the positions of the 7 Dragon Balls cannot be displayed. When Yushin heard this, his heartbeat accelerated inexplicably. After he pondered for a moment, he turned around and said to Turtle Immortal, Teacher Wutian, it seems we have to go to your resting place first to check the situation. Turtle Immortal nodded in agreement. The 3 of them walked quickly and soon arrived at the hotel where Master Turtle Immortal and his disciples were staying. Yushin took the lead and opened the hotel door. However, the sight in front of him shocked him. I saw Son Goku standing quietly in the center of the room. And next to him, there was a corpse lying. Chapter 39. Son Goku heard the movement outside the door and quickly turned his head to look. When he saw Yutian and others standing side by side, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Teacher Yushin, and Bulma, I really didn't expect you to come too. There was a bit of joy in Son Goku's tone. Turtle Immortal looked serious and responded calmly. Yes, Goku, why are you here too? Son Goku explained, I found that Krillin did not appear, and I was a little worried, so I hurried back to take a look. Turtle Immortal nodded, turned his eyes to the conspicuous corpse in the room, and frowned slightly. What happened to this corpse? Son Goku's expression became serious. I don't know. When I got here, this was the only body in the house. Yushin stepped forward and looked at the corpse carefully. It turned out to be General Blue of the Red Ribbon Army. Bulma also saw the corpse, she whispered. It's really Blue. Son Goku turned to look at Bulma and asked doubtfully, Bulma, do you know him? Bulma nodded, Blue is from the Red Ribbon Legion. As for the Red Ribbon Legion, it is a notorious evil organization. Son Goku was enlightened after hearing this. That's it. It seems like this guy is not a good person. Yutian fell into deep thought. He originally speculated that Blue might have kidnapped Krillin for the Dragon Balls, but the situation in front of him confused him. Why did Blue die here? Where did Colin go? Yushin raised his head and asked Son Goku, Goku, have you checked whether the Dragon Ball is still there? When Son Goku heard this, his expression was startled, and then he immediately started searching. After a moment, he shook his head and said, No more, my 4-star bead is gone. Turtle Immortal said in a deep voice, it seems that the Red Ribbon Legion is really here for the Dragon Balls. But, why did Blue die here? Where is Klin now? Bulma thought for a moment and came up with a hypothesis. Maybe Blue kidnapped Krillin and successfully obtained the Dragon Balls, but there was a disagreement within the Red Ribbon Legion, which led to Blue being killed. As for Krillin, he may still be imprisoned somewhere as a hostage. However, Yushin shook his head and denied this speculation. It is unlikely that there will be such disagreements within the Red Ribbon Legion. Moreover, no one should be strong enough to kill him. Another point is that if they have already obtained the Dragon Ball, there is no reason to continue to hold Krillin hostage. Kame Sennin walked slowly towards Blue's body, squatted down and inspected it carefully. He frowned, thought for a moment and then said. Judging from the wound, it seems that he was stabbed straight into the heart with a sharp weapon, killing him with one blow. If Blue hadn't been careless, then this person's strength should be far superior to Blue. Bulma suddenly had an idea and turned to Son Goku and asked. Goku, it wasn't you who killed Blue, was it? Son Goku was stunned after hearing this, looking a little nervous, and responded immediately. I didn't do this. Yushin glanced at Bulma dissatisfied. He knew Son Goku's character well, and he would not be so ruthless. Moreover, if it was really Son Goku who did it, he would definitely admit it frankly. Bulma felt Yushin's eyes and felt a little aggrieved. I'm just making reasonable assumptions. Why are you staring at me? Turtle Immortal said at this time. What should we do now? Should we go back to Turtle Fairy House and take a look first? Yushin nodded after hearing this, thought for a moment and then said. Teacher Yutian, you go back to Kamehameha to check the situation first. I'm going to go to another place to look for clues. As for Goku, you have a game tomorrow, so take a good rest today. Krillin's disappearance left Son Goku in no mood to participate in subsequent games. He shook his head and said, Teacher Yutian and I will go back to Gaixian to have a look. Hearing Son Goku's choice, Kamehameha nodded approvingly. Compared to partners, a martial arts competition is really not that important. Then, the turtle immortal turned around and his eyes fell on Yutian. Yutian, what are your plans? Where are you going to find clues about Klin? Yutian smiled slightly and answered calmly. I plan to go to the Red Ribbon Legion headquarters to investigate the situation. When Turtle Immortal heard this, a trace of surprise flashed across his face. He naturally knew that Yutian was extremely powerful, but after all, the Red Ribbon Legion was a powerful evil organization that should not be underestimated. He thought for a moment and then suggested. Yutian, if not, you come back to the Turtle Fairy House with us first. If you can't find Klin, how about we discuss a comprehensive plan together and then take action? Yutian shook his head gently, with a calm smile still on his face. Teacher Yutian, there's no need to go to such trouble, don't worry. Seeing Yutian so calm, Turtle Immortal felt a little more relieved. Through his contact with Yutian, he knew that the young man in front of him was not impulsive and reckless. Yutian, you must be careful. Turtle Immortal warned, if you encounter danger, retreat in time. In addition, I have a sister who is good at divination. If we really can't find any clues, we can ask her for help. However, he did not know that the crystal ball of the fortune teller had been broken and he could no longer perform divination. After hearing this, Yutian just nodded silently, indicating that he understood what Gaixianren meant. Teacher Yutian, I will take care of myself, don't worry. At this time, Bulma also said eagerly. Yutian, I also want to go to the headquarters of the Red Ribbon Legion. I'll go with you. Upon hearing this, Yutian thought for a moment and nodded in agreement to her request. Okay, let's go together. For Bulma, this operation does not pose much danger, and it is also a rare training opportunity. After all, she will face many powerful opponents in the future, and Yutian cannot protect her safety all the time. Relying on yourself is always the strongest insurance. When Bulma saw Yutian agreeing to her, indescribable joy filled her heart. At this moment, Son Goku suddenly interrupted. Yutian, I will go with you too. My current strength is not what it used to be, and I can definitely help you. In fact, according to Son Goku's character, he has long wanted to have a good fight with Yutian after not seeing him for so long. However, he also knew that it was obviously not appropriate to make such a request now that Klin was missing. Yutian shook his head slightly and declined Son Goku's proposal. He said solemnly. Goku, you should return to Kamehameha with Mr. Yutian. I'm worried that something unexpected may happen there. The two of you can look after each other and ensure safety. After hearing Yutian's words, Son Goku thought for a moment, then nodded in agreement. After everyone agreed on the plan, they immediately started to act separately. In the blink of an eye, only Blue's lonely body was left in the cold room, lying there quietly. Chapter 40. The figures of Yutian and Bulma quickly shuttled between the clouds. After a while, they arrived at the headquarters of the Red Ribbon Legion. This Red Ribbon Legion headquarters is built just like a military fortress. Yutian hovered in the air, looking down at the huge building complex below, with a smile on his lips. It's really hard to understand. It's obvious that the evil deeds of the Red Ribbon Legion have been exposed. Why hasn't the king sent troops to eradicate them completely? Bulma looked at the Red Ribbon Legion headquarters with a hint of indignation in her tone. Yutian turned his head and glanced at her, his smile revealing some deep meaning. Perhaps the king has tried before, but failed in the end. Moreover, even if the Red Ribbon Legion is eliminated today, new evil forces may rise tomorrow. The dark side of this world can never be completely eliminated. Bulma was silent for a moment after hearing this, and then a firm light flashed in her eyes. No matter what, since we are here, we must first completely destroy this organization. Yutian nodded, agreeing with Bulma's determination. At this moment, a piercing alarm suddenly sounded in the headquarters of the Red Ribbon Legion. Immediately afterwards, two huge cannonballs flew towards the two of them at an alarming speed. Bulma's heart tightened when she saw this, and she instinctively wanted to avoid it. However, Yutian stopped firmly in place, still maintaining that calm smile on his face. Don't be afraid, they can't hurt you. Now, try to use the Qigong bombs I taught you yesterday to fight against them. With Yushin's encouragement, Bulma took a deep breath and tried to calm her inner tension. Following the method taught by Yutian yesterday, she condensed the energy in her body into her palms, and then pushed forward suddenly. I saw a dazzling Qigong bomb flying out of her hand, facing the flying cannonball with lightning speed. Boom! A deafening bang exploded in the air. The Qigong bombs and cannonballs collided fiercely, bursting out with strong air waves and fire, and the entire sky was filled with thick smoke. After a moment, when everything calmed down, the cannonball had been completely destroyed by the Qigong bomb. Bulma looked at this scene with excitement shining in her eyes. Yushin, I succeeded. Yushin smiled and nodded. His eyes showed appreciation for Bulma's progress, but then a serious expression appeared on his face and he warned carefully. Yes, but you must always be vigilant and don't be careless. In battle, the enemy will not give up easily. As soon as Yutian finished speaking, 3 new shells roared from different directions, piercing the sky with fierce killing intent. This time, Bulma didn't panic at all. She fired 3 Qigong bombs in a row with ease. Boom! 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 3 deafening loud noises came one after another. Each collision seemed to detonate a miniature sun in the sky. In an instant, fire light splashed out, illuminating the surroundings like daylight. The shock wave generated by the collision spread to all directions, bringing up a strong wind that made Bulma's hair fly. In the huge air waves, Bulma's figure remained standing, her collar fluttering in the wind, like an invincible female war goddess. Yushin looked at her and laughed involuntarily. This Bulma's appearance in battle is truly impressive. Okay, let's go down. Yushin said to Bulma, next, I will give you the second lesson. Hearing this, Bulma immediately restrained her fighting spirit, nodded obediently, and followed Yushin to the ground. She, who was majestic just now, instantly turned into an obedient little girl. At this time, the Red Ribbon army on the ground was already in chaos. They looked at Yushin and Bulma in horror. They didn't expect that these 2 seemingly ordinary young people could survive the powerful shell attack unharmed. Who are you? Why did you break into the headquarters of the Red Ribbon Legion? A leader-looking man shouted. Behind him stood a row of soldiers holding submachine guns, obviously wanting to continue to use force to scare Yushin and Bulma. Yushin took a closer look and found that this leader was Colonel Siraba of the Red Ribbon Legion. He asked straight to the point. Did you send Blue to Papaya Island to steal Son Goku's Dragon Ball? When Siraba heard this, he was secretly angry. Originally, their plan was to act secretly and quietly steal the Dragon Balls. Unexpectedly, Blue became more playful and insisted on participating in some martial arts competition. Now it seems that Blue has exposed his intentions. Not only did he fail to get the Dragon Ball, he also encountered 2 terrifying enemies. Yes, there is such a thing. Siraba shouted bluffingly, but what does it have to do with you? He tried to cover up his inner panic and fear with a tough attitude, but the uneasy light in his eyes betrayed him. It was obvious that he was afraid of the strength of Yushin and Bulma. This is not something you have to worry about. Where are the Dragon Balls now and where are the Krillins? Yushin asked coldly, staring at Siraba with burning eyes. Siraba was stunned after hearing this and responded subconsciously. General Blue hasn't returned yet, and the Dragon Ball should be on him. As for Krillin, are you talking about Kame Sennin's apprentice? Didn't he go to the martial arts conference? Siraba felt strange about Yushin's question. To be on the safe side, they had waited until the ginseng and martial arts competition between Kame Sennin and his disciples before planning to steal the Dragon Balls. Yutian snorted coldly, his voice a little unhappy. If he is attending a martial arts conference, do I still need to come over and ask you? At this time, Bulma also said eagerly. Did you kidnap Klin? Tell me quickly, where are you hiding him? Siraba was about to cry but had no tears at this moment. He is a disciple of Kame Sennin. Except for General Blue, no one is his opponent. He tried his best to explain, hoping that Yushin and Bulma could believe him. However, Yushin said lightly. But Blue is dead. Siraba was shocked when he heard this. What? You said General Blue is dead? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Yushin smiled softly. What's impossible? His body is still lying in the hotel. Siraba was speechless. The news was so shocking to him that he couldn't react for a while. Yushin looked at him and continued. Since you can't provide any valuable information, I'd better ask others. As he said that, he turned to look at Bulma. Bulma, kill him. Bulma was stunned when she heard this, thinking that she heard wrongly, and couldn't help but ask. Yushin, what did you just say? Yushin repeated it calmly. Kill him. In this cruel Dragon Ball world, if Bulma wants to have the ability to protect herself, in addition to having strong strength, she must also have a firm mind. This was the second lesson he taught Bulma. In this tense atmosphere, Bulma showed a little uneasiness. But compared to Siraba, her level of uneasiness was obviously much lighter. At this moment Siraba was completely enveloped in fear. His face turned pale instantly, losing all color like a piece of white paper. In order to save a chance of survival, Siraba suddenly shouted at the top of his lungs. Don't kill me. I also know one of the top secrets of the Red Ribbon Legion. His tone was full of desperate pleading. It was as if this so-called top secret was the only life-saving straw he could grasp at the moment. Chapter 41. When Yushin heard that Siraba mentioned that there was a top secret, his eyes showed some interest. What exactly is the so-called top secret? Yushin asked. Siraba replied slightly nervously. I can tell you, but you have to promise not to kill me. Yushin's voice suddenly dropped a few degrees, revealing a coldness. You are not qualified to negotiate terms with me. I'll give you 5 seconds to speak quickly. Siraba had no choice but to bite the bullet and continue. We are conducting research on artificial humans and have made important breakthroughs. After hearing this, Yushin was a little surprised. Could it be that Dr. Gero has already started research on artificial humans so early? If he were to create an android comparable to Cell right now, it would still be quite troublesome to solve. Bulma's curiosity was aroused and she asked. Cyborg? Are you sure? Siraba turned his head and met Bulma's gaze, his tone was very firm. Yes, I'm quite sure. Yushin said, then tell me specifically what is going on with this artificial man. Siraba nodded slowly, preparing to elaborate on the full extent of the plan. However, at this critical moment, an accident suddenly struck. He suddenly clenched his hands tightly and strangled his neck, as if an invisible force was choking his breathing. His face was distorted, and his eyes were wide open, full of fear and confusion. Immediately afterwards, his legs seemed to have lost all strength in an instant, his knees buckled, and he collapsed weakly to the ground. This scene came so unexpectedly that even Yushin was very surprised. When he looked at Siraba again, he found that the latter had lost his life in this sudden accident. Yushin's face instantly darkened. With his current strength, is there anyone who can kill people under his nose? He knelt down to examine Siraba's body carefully. Through the induction of Qi, he noticed that there seemed to be a foreign body in Siraba's heart. Without a moment's hesitation, he reached out and penetrated Siraba's heart and took out the foreign object. Bulma couldn't bear to look at this bloody scene, so she turned her head and avoided sight. Yushin carefully observed the foreign object in his hand. It's about the size of a knuckle and looks like a receiving device. Obviously, Siraba died because of this little thing. Yushin put away the receiving device. This item may be a key clue to his search for the artificial man. Just as Yushin was preparing to continue dealing with the remaining soldiers. Sudden. A strange scene happened. The soldiers seemed to be controlled by some mysterious force. Each of them covered their throats with their hands tightly, with painful and twisted expressions on their faces. They fell down one after another, and their bodies hit the ground with a swish sound that echoed in the empty base. Afterwards, the entire base fell into dead silence. Bulma was stunned by this sudden turn of events. Her eyes widened and she looked at what was happening in front of her in disbelief. What the hell is going on? Yushin still remained calm, with no emotion visible on his face. He quietly stared at the soldiers who fell to the ground, and then slowly spoke. Some people were afraid that we would know about the artificial human experimental base, so they killed all the controlled soldiers in advance. Bulma heard this and grabbed Yushin's arm tightly. Ah, what should I do? Yushin smiled softly. It's just a bunch of rats hiding their heads and showing their tails. After a pause, he continued, they think this can stop my investigation? It's really ridiculous. However, this incident gave me an inspiration. Bulma was stunned and looked up at Yutian, her eyes full of doubts. What inspiration? Yushin explained slowly. As martial artists, we usually use Qi to sense the existence and movements of our opponents. But with technological products, it is difficult for them to sense them in advance. If we can make good use of this, sometimes we can achieve unexpected effects. As he spoke, he took out the receiving device that he had taken out from Saluba's heart before and looked at it thoughtfully. Bulma also lowered her head and fell into deep thought. Yushin suddenly turned around and said to Bulma. Let's go. I can't feel Krillin's breath here. Let's go back to the Turtle Fairy house and take a look. Bulma looked around and asked hesitantly. Aren't you going to check it carefully? Maybe there are other clues hidden here. Yushin looked up at the huge building complex of the Red Ribbon Legion, shrugged, and answered helplessly. I don't have time to search such a large area piece by piece. Bulma couldn't help but burst out laughing after hearing his words. You are really lazy. Forget it, I'll call Dad and ask him to send some robots to help with the search. Yutian also smiled, who says it's not the case? Now I feel more and more that there are quite a lot of restrictions on martial arts masters. After saying that, the two of them left the base of the Red Ribbon Legion and flew towards the Kame Immortal House. Their figures drifted farther and farther in the sky, eventually turning into two small black dots and disappearing without a trace. Time passed slowly, and the Red Dot Legion base returned to silence. However, in this dead silence, a woman with short purple hair suddenly moved. She slowly climbed up from the ground, her eyes flashing with cunning and vigilance. It turned out that she had just blended in with the fallen soldiers and cleverly pretended to be dead to avoid the attention of Yushin and Bulma. The woman muttered to herself. Fortunately, these two humans cannot sense my existence. My current strength is far from their opponent. We must not meet head-on. Her words revealed her fear of Yu and Tian. Then, the woman's face suddenly became fierce, and a hint of coldness flashed in her eyes. She said through gritted teeth. And that damn Dr. Kekken actually dared to secretly put that kind of thing in my body in an attempt to control me. I must avenge this. When I find the opportunity, I will never let him go. Her voice was full of anger, and she mentioned a doctor named Kekken, whom she obviously hated deeply. She stood up slowly. Although the base of the Red Ribbon Legion has become deserted, she believes that there must be some clues hidden here that can guide her to find the mysterious experimental base. The woman began to search every corner carefully, not letting go of any possible clues. Interesting, another little guy without any breath, but you are much weaker than the person I met before. A sudden voice suddenly sounded in the empty base. This startled the woman who was concentrating on searching for information. Could it be that the couple left and came back? The woman quickly turned her head to look. But she found that the visitor was a stranger she had never seen before. Chapter 42. Yushin and Bulma soon arrived at the Kame Immortal House. At this time, Son Goku and Kame Immortal had been waiting for a long time. How's it going? Did you find any clues? Seeing the arrival of Yushin and Bulma, Turtle Immortal immediately stood up from the sofa, his eyes full of concern. Yushin shook his head gently. Then, he slowly opened his mouth and told everyone in detail what happened at the headquarters of the Red Ribbon Legion. After hearing this, Turtle Immortal frowned even more tightly, and a trace of worry flashed in his eyes. All the soldiers inside were killed remotely. This method is really outrageous. The Red Ribbon Legion did not hesitate to use such vicious methods in order to control people. Son Goku clenched his fists, his eyes full of anger. Could this matter be related to Klin's disappearance? Yushin pondered for a moment, then shook his head. I don't think it has much to do with it. There may be another conspiracy here. Son Goku looked worried. Damn it, where did Klin go? I must find him. Seeing this, Bulma quickly stepped forward to comfort him. Maybe Klin just felt a little bored and went out for a walk by himself. Son Goku shook his head, obviously disagreeing with Bulma's point of view. What happened to the dead blue and my lost Dragon Ball? After hearing this, everyone fell into silence. Turtle Immortal pondered for a moment, and then spoke slowly. Yushin, you should stay at the Red Ribbon Legion base and search carefully. You might be able to find dragon beads or other useful clues. Yushin sighed helplessly. The Dragon Ball radar is now completely disabled and cannot be used at all. The headquarters of the Red Ribbon Legion is so big, our search efficiency in each room is too low. Bulma added from the sidelines. I've asked my father to send a robot there. It's better to leave this kind of thing to the robots. They search efficiently and won't get tired. Turtle Immortal nodded, a hint of approval flashing in his eyes. This is a good idea. However, you still have to pay more attention to safety. Son Goku frowned and asked anxiously. What should we do now? Kame Sennin gently put his hand on Son Goku's shoulder, with some comfort in his eyes. Don't worry, I'm going to find my sister soon. She is a well-known fortune teller. She may be able to figure out Klin's whereabouts through her power. After hearing this, Yutian said softly. Are you talking about the fortune teller? However, I heard that her crystal ball has been broken and she can no longer perform divination. Turtle Immortal was stunned after hearing this. He obviously did not expect such a change, and a trace of disappointment flashed across his face. At this time, Son Goku suddenly spoke. Then use the Dragon Balls. As long as you collect 7 Dragon Balls, you can summon the dragon. Maybe it can tell us the whereabouts of Krillin. Yutian felt a little strange when he heard this, and he asked doubtfully. But now the Dragon Ball radar cannot be used normally, how can we find the Dragon Balls? Son Goku smiled, his eyes shining with persistence. It doesn't matter, I can search all over the world, and one day I can find them all. After hearing this, Yutian felt that this method was extremely stupid and almost an impossible task. However, when he saw Son Goku's expectant look, he didn't say much and just nodded silently. Bulma coughed slightly and broke the silence. Then I will also go back and study what is wrong with the Dragon Ball radar. If there is any news, I will notify you in time. Afterwards, Yutian and Bulma said goodbye to Son Goku and came Senin and flew to the western capital. On the way, Yutian suddenly asked. Bulma, do you also think Goku's approach is quite unreliable? Bulma smiled slightly, her eyes revealing an inexplicable determination. It's better than doing nothing. At least, we are trying to find a solution to the problem. Yutian was stunned, he didn't expect Bulma to think like this. He was silent for a while, then nodded, secretly admiring their optimism and persistence. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, less than half a year has passed. Yutian, I really haven't contacted my sister for a long time, and I feel so uneasy. Bulma held her cheeks in her hands, frowned, and sat listlessly on the sofa, with a trace of worry in her eyes. Yutian handed her a cup of freshly brewed hot tea and said softly. Don't be too anxious. Your sister probably just went out to relax and had so much fun that she forgot to contact her family. Bulma took the teacup, but her brows still didn't relax. But no matter where she goes, she will call home at least once a month to report that she is safe. Yutian thought for a while and tried to comfort her. Perhaps she went to a remote planet this time. The signal between universes is not very good, so she can't contact her for the time being. Bulma shook her head, with a hint of helplessness in her tone. When she goes to other planets, she will always go with Jack. But now Jack is so busy, how can he have time to accompany her on interstellar travels? Yutian asked with concern. Then have you tried to find her? Bulma sighed. Of course I did. I even made a special trip to Dr. Dashan, but Dr. Dashan said he didn't see my sister either. Upon hearing this, Yutian tried to change the topic. Don't worry, is there any news from Krillin recently? How is Goku's progress in finding the Dragon Balls? Bulma's expression became even more depressed. I heard from teacher Yutian some time ago that half a year has passed and Goku hasn't even found a single Dragon Ball yet. This situation was actually within Yutian's expectation. Without Dragon Ball radar, finding a bead on this vast planet is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Bulma continued. Dad didn't find anything at the Red Ribbon Legion headquarters last time. It seems that some important information has been transferred in advance. At this moment, a diddy sound sounded. A small robot came over and said in a mechanical voice. Master, there's a call from the Interstellar. Bulma was stunned when she heard this, then a hint of joy appeared on her face. Interstellar phone call? Is it from my sister? Yutian, you really guessed it right. My sister may have really gone on an interstellar journey by herself. Yutian smiled, let's go and see together. The two came to the communication room and walked in front of a huge screen. A figure appeared on the screen, but it was not Taisai, but Galactic Patrolman Gok. Bulma couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when she saw it wasn't Tais. Yutian, no, the galaxy prison has been attacked. Jake said hurriedly as soon as he saw Yutian. When Yutian heard this, he was a little surprised and asked. Who is so bold? Is it Frieza's legion? Jack shook his head. Although Frieza is arrogant and domineering, he also knows the special nature of the galactic prison and will not approach it easily. Yutian asked with a frown. Who is that? Is it Slug's subordinate? Or is there a new force rising in the universe? Gok responded. There is indeed a new force rising rapidly in the universe recently, but the person who attacked this time has nothing to do with them. Then, Jack turned around and gave some instructions to the people around him. The picture on the screen turned and showed the figure of a person. It turned out to be Klin, who had disappeared for a long time. Klin! Bulma exclaimed. She had met Klin before at Turtle Fairy House, and as soon as the picture flashed, she recognized him immediately. Jack was stunned. I didn't expect you to know each other. We found out that he was from Earth, so we immediately connected with you. Yutian looked solemn and asked, what is his purpose in attacking Galaxy Prison? Jack replied in a deep voice. He's going to help Dales get out of jail. Chapter 43. Help Dales get out of jail. When Yushin heard this, his brows frowned suddenly. He was quite surprised by this sudden information. Jack nodded heavily and said in a low voice. Yes, this is the news I learned from the guards who narrowly escaped. When Bulma heard this, a trace of doubt and uneasiness flashed in her eyes. A guard who narrowly escaped? What does this mean? Her voice trembled slightly, obviously having a premonition of the next words. Sure enough, Jack's face became even more sad and angry, and there was unconcealable pain in his voice. Literally, that Earthling has brutally killed many guards since he broke into the galactic prison. Bulma was stunned when she heard this, and she murmured in disbelief. Klin, he can actually kill people? This is unbelievable. Her thoughts drifted back to the first time she met Krillin at the Kame Fairy House. The Klin in her memory is just a shy and kind-hearted little boy. She really can't relate to the atrocities today? Yushin on the side remained silent. At this moment, the doubts in his heart came like a tide, and for a moment he didn't know where to start. Seeing this, Jack continued. That Earthling, his name is Klin, right? It seems that you two have a close relationship. But I must tell you that he has now become the most wanted criminal in the galaxy. Once our galactic patrol encounters him, we have the right to execute him immediately. A kill order. Yushin spoke slowly, with a calm tone. He escaped. Jack nodded with regret in his voice. Yes, we failed to capture him. Yushin fell into deep thought. According to the background he knew, Klin's combat effectiveness at this time was far from reaching the level of being able to break into the galactic prison. There must be something fishy in this. Bulma argued eagerly. Gok, there must be a misunderstanding here. Klin is not such a person. Jack shook his head, his tone firm. Misunderstanding? No, there is no misunderstanding here. Do you know how many dead galactic patrolmen and soldiers he already has under his command? Yushin interrupted the argument between them at the right time. Jake, let's calm down first. Please tell us the whole story in detail from beginning to end. Jake turned his eyes to Yushin, nodded, and began to narrate. It happened 3 days ago. At that time, a universe spacecraft broke into the realm of the galaxy prison without permission. Bulma interjected eagerly. Didn't the guards of the galactic prison do anything to stop it? Jack's expression seemed a little embarrassed as he explained. The ship had the Galactic Patrol logo on it, and the guards mistakenly thought it was a colleague who entered the restricted area due to drunkenness. Yushin understood secretly in his heart and nodded to express his understanding. Jack continued. However, when the hatch slowly opened, what came out was a short man with a strange appearance. Bulma couldn't help but retort. Although Klin is bald, he can't be called weird by any means. Yushin winked at Bulma gently, indicating to her that now was not the time to argue about these details. Seeing this, Jack continued his narrative. Later we realized that the man was a real demon. After he stepped out of the spacecraft, he first glanced at a circle of guards, and then launched an attack without warning. Our guards immediately fought back, but the disparity in strength was too great. No match for that devil. Then, he deliberately left some alive, and after catching one, he asked about the whereabouts of Dales. Naturally, our soldiers would rather die than surrender, but they were brutally killed by him, and he continued to ask the next one. Bulma interrupted again. According to what you said, Klin should have achieved his goal. Jack shook his head, his tone full of heaviness. No. In the face of such emergencies, our galactic empire naturally has a set of careful and unknown emergency plans to deal with it. Bulma's curiosity was aroused and she asked. What kind of plan is that? Jack's expression turned serious. I'm sorry I can't tell you this for now. It involves the security and secrets of the Galactic Empire. Yushin interrupted at this time, his voice calm. After your narration, I have a general understanding of what happened. But now, I want to raise a few doubts in my mind. Jack nodded and motioned for him to continue. Yutian began to list the contradictions he discovered. First, as far as I know, Klin is a native of Earth. How did he know about the existence of dares? Second, how did Klin leave the Earth? Third, how did he find and break into Fourth? As far as I know, his strength is only slightly higher than that of ordinary people on Earth, and he is simply not capable of killing the soldiers of the galaxy prison. After hearing this, Jack sighed and said slowly. Those are your doubts, and what I said are ironclad facts. In any case, the matter has reached this point, and no matter how many doubts you list, it will not change anything. Yutian tries to convince Jike. What I mean is that this person is probably not Klin, or Klin is controlled and can't help himself. Jack shook his head, his tone very firm. Yutian, no one will listen to what you are saying. In the face of the irrefutable facts, any excuse is feeble. After Yutian was silent for a moment, he slowly said. I just hope that you can show mercy after meeting Klin. There must be some unknown secret behind this. Hearing this, Jack thought for a while and finally shook his head. This is impossible. Unless this devil can be captured without restraint, we will never let him go. What he has done has far exceeded the bottom line of what we can tolerate. Bulma heard this and retorted angrily. Why are you so unreasonable? How can you kill people at will when you haven't figured out what's going on? Jack also became angry after hearing this. How else to find out? He broke into the galaxy prison without authorization and brutally killed so many innocent soldiers. This is an irrefutable fact before us. To be honest, since you have a good relationship with him, you can infer from common sense, it will inevitably make people suspicious. When Yutian heard this, his face was calm and he spoke slowly. Since we are also involved in this matter, I will go to the Galaxy headquarters in person in a few days to explain it clearly to the Galaxy King. After hearing this, Jake's face changed slightly. He is well aware of Yutian's strength, and he knows that if Yutian has evil intentions or becomes an enemy of the Galaxy Empire for Krillin, the consequences will be disastrous. Thinking of this, Jack apologized quickly, his tone full of sincerity. I'm sorry, Yutian, I just lost my composure. Actually, I didn't mean that. You are my friends, so I naturally trust you. However, Bulma didn't buy it. She sneered and said stiffly. Believe it? Believe it. Why don't we give Klin a chance to explain? I think you obviously don't trust us. Yutian waved his hand gently, signaling Bulma to stop talking. He turned to Jack and his tone became calmer. Jack, don't think too much. I'm going to the Galaxy headquarters and there is one more important thing. Chapter 44. When Jake heard that Yutian had other things, he couldn't help but feel curious. He asked tentatively. What's going on? Can you tell me something? Yutian smiled slightly, but did not answer directly, but said softly. It would be more appropriate to discuss this matter in detail with the Galaxy King in person. When Jake heard this, his heart tightened. He was afraid that what he had just said had offended Yutian, causing Yutian to confront King Galaxy in person. However, seeing that Yutian didn't mean to say anything, Jake had no choice but to suppress his doubts and forced a smile to cover up his inner anxiety. That's fine. If you have anything to say, feel free to speak freely to King Galaxy. Bulma was still worried about Krillin and asked. So do you have the latest news about Klin? Jack shook his head, with a look of regret on his face. Currently we have no definite information about him. However, intelligence indicates that he may have recently gone to the Purification Alliance's sphere of influence. Purification Alliance. When Yutian heard this, he raised his eyebrows slightly. This name sounded strange to him. Seeing this, Jack quickly explained. This is exactly what I mentioned before. In addition to Frieza's Legion and Slug's gang, there is a new force that has risen rapidly in the universe recently. Their actions are mysterious and unpredictable, and their strength cannot be underestimated. After hearing this, Yutian became interested in this new organization. What is the strength of this Purification Alliance? Are there experts behind it? Jack nodded affirmatively. Indeed, the leader of the Purification Alliance is named Rejik. This man was originally just a wanderer in the universe, making a living as a bodyguard for rich people. Yutian asked, what is the strength of this Rejik? Jack pondered for a moment, seemed to be sorting out his thoughts, and then answered slowly. As for Rejik's specific strength, we are indeed unable to give an exact assessment yet. However, judging from the information we currently have, he has never been defeated in all the confrontations so far. Yutian nodded slightly, with a solemn look in his eyes, indicating that he understood the situation. Jack suddenly became a little hesitant. He licked his lips, as if he was weighing something, and finally added. Actually, according to the intelligence we obtained through in-depth investigation, Rikik may just be the apparent leader of this organization. Behind him, there are two more mysterious and powerful real leaders hidden. When Yutian heard this, he raised his eyebrows and asked. And there are two real leaders? Jack nodded, but there was a trace of uncertainty in his tone. Yes, we are not entirely sure. Because these two people are so mysterious, we only learned of their existence by accident. As he spoke, Jack winked at the person next to him, and the person immediately understood and operated the console. The huge display screen flashed and instantly switched to a human figure. This person is one of the two mysterious leaders. This is an image sent back by our personnel who infiltrated the organization and risked their lives. Jack explained. Ah! Seeing the picture on the screen, Dr. Bulma couldn't help but screamed. Seeing this, Yutian quickly and quietly pulled Bulma's sleeve, signaling her with his eyes to keep quiet. Bulma reacted immediately, patted her chest and said. Oh, this picture suddenly flashed and scared me. Although Gok was slightly confused by Bulma's reaction, he did not delve into it. He turned to look at Yutian, waiting for his reaction. Yushin's eyes were fixed on the screen, and the familiar face filled his mind with countless questions and speculations. He pondered for a moment, his voice low and powerful. Is this what you said, one of the two people behind the scenes? Confirmed. Jack nodded slightly. Yes. Yutian took a deep breath, his eyes flashing with sharp light. His mood at the moment was undoubtedly complicated. Because the person who appeared on the screen turned out to be Son Goku. At this moment, he seemed to be standing on the threshold of an unknown world, and what was hidden behind the door were endless mysteries. After being silent for a long time, Yutian spoke slowly, with a hint of calmness in his voice. Gok, thank you for sharing so much information with me today. I am deeply sorry about Krillin. I decided to go to the Galaxy headquarters and inform the Galaxy King of all the information I have. Mentioning Krillin, Jack couldn't help but recall the tragic scene in the Galaxy prison. However, this time, he quickly calmed down his emotions. Yutian, this matter has nothing to do with you. If you want to go to the Galaxy headquarters, just take the Universe spacecraft that sent you to Earth. Yutian nodded slightly, and then hung up the interstellar call, his eyes shining with determination. Bulma could no longer suppress her doubts at this time and asked quickly. Yutian, what is going on? Why did Krillin go to the Galaxy prison to rescue Dales and kill so many guards? Oh my god, did he do all of this? She paused and continued. And that Purification Alliance, how could the leader behind them be Goku? I couldn't believe my eyes, I must have seen it wrong. Facing Bulma's series of questions, Yutian just responded lightly. Let's go back to the living room first. The tea we just brewed is about to cool down. Although Bulma was anxious, she still nodded and followed Yutian back to the living room. Yutian sat down on the sofa and spoke solemnly. Let's put Krillin's matter aside for now. First of all, that Goku is obviously not the Goku we know. Bulma carefully recalled the images on the screen and spoke. You put it like that, and I thought about it carefully, and there is indeed something different. That Goku seems to be taller and has a completely different temperament. Yutian nodded, knowing very well that the image shown by Jack was clearly the adult Son Goku. Moreover, based on the special attire of Son Goku, he even recognized that the person should be Space-Time Patroller Son Goku. Where did this Space-Time Patrolman Son Goku come from? Why didn't he come to Earth and instead formed the Purification Alliance with someone? Who is the other person? What is their purpose? In addition, there are too many doubts that make Yutian confused. He knew very well that he could not wait any longer. The previous plan with Mara has changed. In order to improve his strength as soon as possible, it is time to release Mara in advance and let him regain his strength. Thinking of this, Yutian stood up resolutely and said to Bulma. Bulma, I have decided to go to the Galaxy headquarters tomorrow. Chapter 45. Bulma said immediately when she heard that Yutian was going to Galaxy headquarters tomorrow. Is the matter so urgent? In that case, I will accompany you. Yutian shook his head gently. No, Bulma, it is more appropriate for you to stay here. This way, once there is new information about Krillin, you can convey it to teacher Yutian and others in time. Bulma was silent for a moment, thinking carefully about Yushin's words, and finally nodded. You are right, then I will stay here. But, Yushin, you must be careful. Yushin gave Bulma a smile to express his understanding. Then, he pondered for a while, his expression solemn. As for the other Goku, don't tell teacher Yushin and the others for now. I'll go to Galaxy headquarters to find out what's going on. When Bulma heard this, a trace of worry flashed in her eyes, but she nodded firmly. Okay, I will keep it a secret. Don't worry. After Yushin explained some more things, he began to pack the necessary luggage. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, Yushin had already traveled through the vast starry sky on the Universe spacecraft and arrived at the location of the Galaxy headquarters. The moment Yushin stepped out of the Universe spaceship, he found that Galaxy King and Jack had been waiting for him for a long time. Yushin, it's been a long time. Your arrival always makes our place brighter. The Galaxy King extended a tentacle enthusiastically. Yutian casually stretched out his hand to shake it and responded with a smile. Hello, distinguished King of the Galaxy, I haven't seen you for a long time. Then, he turned to Gok politely and nodded in greeting. The Galaxy King smiled brightly. I heard from Jack that you have something important that you need to discuss with me personally. Could it be that you need my help for something? Yushin nodded affirmatively. Indeed, I must ask for your help in this matter. It's not appropriate to have a long discussion here. It would be more appropriate for us to move to the last meeting room. Galaxy King suggested, and then led Yushin towards the depths of Galaxy Palace. At this time, there were only two people, Yushin and Galaxy King, in the conference room. Yutian chuckled and joked. You really feel at ease with me. You don't even need guards. Aren't you afraid that I will suddenly attack? When the Galaxy King heard this, he also laughed. In the face of your powerful strength, no matter how many guards you have, it will be in vain. Moreover, I believe in your character, and I believe in your own vision. Hearing this, Yushin thanked him, then picked up the hot tea on the table and took a sip. I think that although the Galactic Patrol has good combat effectiveness, their strength is not top-notch in the vast universe. Why haven't they recruited some more powerful masters? Galaxy King sighed and explained. It's not that we don't recruit experts, it's just that many powerful people are used to being free in the universe and don't want to join the Galaxy Patrol at all. Yushin thought for a while and finally said. If necessary, I can help improve the combat effectiveness of the Galaxy Patrol. Hearing this, King Galaxy flashed a hint of joy in his eyes and asked quickly. Do you really have a way to improve the strength of the Galaxy Patrol? This is not something you just talk about. Yushin chuckled and said confidently. Of course I won't talk nonsense. Now that I have said it, there must be a way. That's great. Galaxy King breathed a sigh of relief, with a rare relaxed expression on his face. Recently, the Galactic Empire is facing multiple threats from Frieza, Slug, and the new Force Purification Alliance, which makes him feel very anxious. He knew that the root cause of all this still lay in his own lack of strength. If Yutian can really improve the strength of the Galaxy Patrol, it will undoubtedly save him a lot of trouble. Yushin did not continue to answer, but blew into the teacup and took a leisurely sip of hot tea. King Galaxy immediately understood. He knew that Yushin could not make such a suggestion for no reason. What conditions do you have? Just tell me, as long as I can do it, I will try my best to satisfy you. Yushin put down the teacup and said slowly. I hope that the Galactic Empire can unlock Dare's strength so that he can follow me to the place of origin. When the Galaxy King heard this, he didn't look too surprised, he just said thoughtfully. Yushin, that Earthling's attack on the Galaxy prison has nothing to do with you, right? Yutian chuckled and said calmly. That Earthling went to rescue Dares, and I personally sent Dares in. If I really wanted to rescue him, I would tell you openly and openly like I did today. Galaxy King also smiled, he nodded and said. That's what I thought too. Yushin looked at Galaxy King with shining eyes and said. I have put forward my conditions, what are your plans? When King Galaxy heard this, he frowned slightly, as if he was weighing something, and then he slowly spoke, with a hint of expectation in his voice. Yushin, can you tell me first, to what level can you improve the combat effectiveness of the Galaxy Patrol? Yushin smiled softly and explained. Everyone's physique is different, and the effect of improvement will naturally vary. But in my opinion, in most cases, there should be no problem in increasing their combat power to about 10,000. After hearing this, Galaxy King's eyes flashed with surprise and he exclaimed. 10,000 combat power? Are you sure? That is already a qualitative leap. In the Dragon Ball world, 10,000 combat power is enough for one person to dominate the world. Masters with such strength usually would not join an organization like the Galaxy Patrol. Yutian nodded and said affirmatively. Sure. The Galaxy King was silent for a moment, seeming to think deeply before finally making a decision. Since Dales was captured by your own hands, it is reasonable for you to take him away now. When Yutian heard this, a smile appeared on his face. Now that the deal had been reached, the two of them turned to chatting about some relaxed topics, and the atmosphere became pleasant. Soon after, Yutian stood up to say goodbye and prepared to leave. Early the next morning, Yutian came to the Galaxy Palace again. He was surprised to find that in addition to the familiar Jack, the Galaxy King also sent dozens of soldiers to go to the Galaxy prison with him. These soldiers were dressed in neat equipment and looked solemn. They were obviously well prepared for this mission. Yutian frowned slightly and asked doubtfully. Why are so many people sent this time? Is there any special arrangement? Jake heard this and explained with a smile. This mission is not ordinary. On the one hand, we have to escort precious treasures like the Wendigo to ensure that it is safe and sound. On the other hand, Galaxy Prison has been short of manpower recently, so we can give them some additional manpower by the way to enhance their defense strength. After hearing Jake's explanation, Yutian suddenly understood. He nodded and glanced at the soldiers, secretly assessing their strength. Although these soldiers are well trained, their average combat power is only about 200, which may be enough for ordinary people, but if they encounter a truly strong person, they may be difficult to deal with. Yutian thought to himself, no wonder the Galaxy King was so looking forward to it when he learned that he could help improve the strength of the Galaxy Patrol. At this moment, the Galaxy King slowly walked over and said a few inspiring words briefly and powerfully. After the King of the Galaxy finished speaking, Yutian led the group of soldiers in a mighty spaceship and flew towards the distant galaxy. Prison. Chapter 46. After a long and boring interstellar flight, Yutian and others finally arrived at the Galaxy Prison. The spacecraft landed slowly, the hatch opened, and Jack was the first to step out. He stretched his body, which was slightly stiff due to the long flight, and then turned to look at Yutian with a bit of concern on his face. Yutian, it's been a hard journey. Do you want to take a break first and adjust your condition? Yutian shook his head, no need, let's go directly to the place where Dales is being held. Time is running out. Jack nodded and immediately led the way. Yutian noticed that in addition to himself and Jake, there were 5 soldiers accompanying him. Among them, one person was tightly surrounded by 4 other people. Clearly, he holds a vital Wendigo in his hands. After passing through the overlapping levels of the Galaxy Prison, the group finally arrived at the most tightly guarded area of the prison. Jack chuckled. Yutian, this is your second time here. How do you feel? Yutian also smiled and said with emotion. Yeah, time flies so fast. It seems like it was yesterday last time I came here. They continued to move towards Dale's cell. Before they even got there, Yutian heard Dare's arrogant voice. You guys had better be polite to me. I, Dales, will become the next emperor of the universe sooner or later. As soon as he finished speaking, Dales seemed to notice something. He turned back suddenly and instantly locked onto Yutian and others who had just walked in. A playful smile appeared on Yutian's lips. Dales, it seems you are doing well here. When Dales saw it was Yutian, he immediately put on a flattering face. It turns out that Lord Yutian arrived and made you laugh. I was just joking. Jack on the side said seriously. Dales, this time Master Yutian begged the Galaxy King to give you a chance to get out of the Galaxy Prison. You must abide by the laws of the Galaxy Empire honestly from now on and stop doing those illegal things. When Dales heard this, he felt ecstatic in his heart and quickly nodded his thanks. Thank you, Master Yutian. I heard the news 2 days ago that someone was escorting me out. I guessed it was you at that time. Yutian glanced at him lightly. There's no need to say thank you. You should understand that I won't let you out for no reason. Upon seeing this, Dales quickly expressed his stance eagerly, his tone full of sincerity. Master Yutian, I am willing to serve you. No matter what you ask, I will do whatever you ask. Yutian looked at Dales and saw that he had a correct attitude. He nodded with satisfaction, then turned to Jack and said, Let him out of jail first. Jack nodded to express his understanding. Then, he winked at the prison guards who were already waiting here and whispered a few instructions. One of the prison guards immediately stepped forward and took out a special key from his waist. He expertly inserted it into the keyhole, twisted it slightly, and the cell door to which Dales was imprisoned opened with a sound. Dales regained his freedom, and his heart was filled with indescribable excitement. He thanked Yutian again, as if he had forgotten that the person in front of him was the culprit who sent him to prison. Yutian made a request at this time. Can you unlock the seal on Dares right here? Jake was slightly startled when he heard this, but then nodded in agreement. Okay, let's do it here. So, the commissioner who came with them slowly walked behind Dales with a Wendigo in hand. The other 4 soldiers immediately formed a circle vigilantly, protecting the 2 people tightly in the middle to prevent any unexpected events. I saw the commissioner muttering words, as if he was chanting some ancient mantra. The Wendigo in his hand was like a living thing, slowly squirming, and then it was tightly clasped on Dale's back like a suction cup. Yutian sensed that Dale's aura was rising continuously, and couldn't help but secretly marveled. Seeing that the time was almost up, Yutian suddenly sent a message to Dales. I'm transmitting my thoughts to you now. Don't show any abnormality, just listen to me silently. Dales was shocked, but then quickly calmed down, pretending that nothing happened, and silently listened to Yutian's explanation. As Yutian's words continued to reach his ears, Dales became more and more surprised as he listened, but his face did not show any strange expression at all. Soon, with the end of the spell in the commissioner's mouth, Dales' strength was completely unlocked. The commissioner said respectfully, Mr. Dales, your strength has been fully restored. Congratulations, sir. Dales moved his body and felt the long-lost majestic power surging in his body. He was in a good mood and had a proud smile on his face. Seeing this, Yutian said, since the seal has been lifted, let's get out of here quickly. However, at this moment, Dales suddenly took action. He grabbed the commissioner's wrist and said in a cold tone. Do you think I will really be obedient? As he spoke, he twisted hard, and the commissioner involuntarily opened his palms in pain, and the Wendigo slipped instantly. With quick eyesight and quick hands, Dales immediately grabbed the Wendigo in his hands. A hole. When the remaining 4 guarding soldiers saw this, their combat power surged instantly. They flashed and pounced on Dales like tigers descending from the mountain. Yutian was also quite surprised when he saw this scene. The combat power of these 4 people was only 1,000 before, but unexpectedly it jumped to around 5,000 now. It was obvious that they had used some special means to increase their strength. However, even if their combat effectiveness increased dramatically, they were still not enough in front of Dales. Dales shouted loudly and knocked 4 people away with just his breath. When Yutian saw this, he shouted loudly. You are so bold that you don't repent and try to do evil again. Before he finished speaking, he rose up and punched Dales hard. The fist wind roared and was unstoppable. Dales was caught off guard, and the punch hit him hard in the face, and he instantly fell deeper into the corridor. After landing, Dales quickly stood up and hurriedly wiped away the remaining blood at the corner of his mouth with his sleeves. Immediately afterwards, he turned his head suddenly, and his body seemed to merge into the darkness, turning into a swift black shadow and quickly escaping deep into the corridor. Where is he going? Jake shouted anxiously and was about to catch up, but Yutian stretched out his hand to stop him. Yutian said in a deep voice, Jake, take the people away first and leave this place to me. I can't do anything with you here. Hearing this, Jack gritted his teeth and nodded. He asked everyone to leave quickly and said to Yutian. Yutian, I'm leaving it to you. I didn't expect that Dares would not change his mind and even tried to escape. Yutian smiled and said, don't worry, I won't let him succeed. After Jake and his party left, the smile on Yutian's face slowly faded and was replaced by a solemn look. Without a moment's hesitation, he turned around decisively and flew deeper into the prison. Not long after, an old and deep voice echoed in the empty corridor. You're here, why did you change your plans without notifying me in advance? As the voice fell, Luo's figure gradually emerged from the dim shadows. And behind him was Dales, who had just escaped. Chapter 47. Yutian could tell that Luo was teasing him. Apparently he had just gotten out of trouble and he was in a good mood. If the plan can't keep up with the change, where will I have the time to inform you? Yutian responded calmly, with a hint of imperceptible indifference in his tone. Luo chuckled, seemingly not caring about Yutian's attitude. I urgently need to use the power of the Wendigo to restore my strength. Please pay attention to the movements around me first. Yutian nodded without revealing his expression, making it impossible to guess what he was really thinking. Don't worry, I have arranged all the prison guards and they will not bother you again. However, you have to speed up. This is not a place where we can stay for a long time. Mora wasted no time and quickly took out the Wendigo from his arms. The mysterious artifact shone with a faint luster in the darkness, as if it contained infinite power. Mara closed his eyes, and like the previous commissioner, he began to recite ancient mantras silently. As the spell sounded, the Wendigo seemed to be activated, and swish it was tightly attached to his back like a magnet. Soon, the long-dormant power in Mo Luo finally woke up. His aura began to rise continuously, like an unstoppable torrent, gradually forming a spherical airwave with him as the center. This airwave carried the power of destroying the world and spreading violently to all directions. The extremely powerful energy shook the prison full of restrictions, as if the entire universe was shaking at this moment. The walls of the prison slowly began to appear cracks, and the restricted light became flickering, as if it would collapse at any time. Immediately afterwards, waves of wind and waves burst out from Mo Luo. These wind waves are like sharp blades, carrying the power to tear apart space, ruthlessly involving everything around them. Under the impact of such a powerful airflow, even the powerful Dales felt a little unsteady on his feet. His figure was crumbling in the terrifying wind and waves. This person is so terrifying. Dale's eyes widened, filled with horror. He had never seen such amazing energy. This power seemed to have surpassed the limits of living things, making him feel unprecedented fear. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg under the powerful power of Mara. A purple flame suddenly emerged from Mo Luo's body, like a wildly dancing dragon, with the power to destroy the world and instantly distort the surrounding space into pieces. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening loud noise. The lowest level of the entire prison finally couldn't bear the terrifying energy of Mara, and exploded with Mara as the center. The shock wave generated by the explosion swept around like a tsunami, swallowing up everything. Dales was knocked away by the huge air wave, flew through the air, and fell heavily to the ground. At this moment, the joy in Yutian's heart was no less than that of Mo Luo, and his heart was filled with indescribable excitement. He clearly felt that his combat power increased exponentially like an explosion, 100,000, 1 million, 10 million. He even had the illusion that every move he made contained terrifying energy that could shake the world. This unprecedented power made him feel more powerful and confident than ever before, as if the whole world was under his control. Is this super blue energy? Finally, Mora's strength reached its peak and stopped growing. Seeing this, Yutian couldn't wait to call out his panel attributes. Name Yutian Realm. First glimpse of the door-bound characters: Son Goku, Bulma, Kamizenin, Mara. Skills acquired: Turtle-style Qigong, Shocking Palm of all nations, Mind reading, Power of nature, Voice transmission of thoughts, Life perception. Additional rewards: Saiyan Bloodline, Earthling Bloodline, Mysterious State. Hidden rewards: Son Goku's combat talent, Bulma's scientific research ability, Use of Chi, Fairy Bean making, Void survival. Special reward: Bulma's favor. Character evaluation: I have just touched the edge of power. Although I am still a little unfamiliar, I already have a good shape. Yutian noticed that his combat power column had been replaced by the word realm. What surprised him was that his current strength, which was comparable to that of Super Blue, could only be regarded as a first glimpse. When Mo Luo saw Yutian standing still and calm under his powerful pressure, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyebrows. It seems you do have some ability. Yutian smiled calmly. I don't have much ability, how dare I let you go? Upon hearing this, Mara smiled sinisterly and said, do you want me to go to the place of origin with you? Yutian shook his head and said slowly, I am going to meet someone, and you may need your help then. Mara asked, who is it? Yutian said calmly, Time and Space Patroller Son Goku. Space Patrol? What is that? Mara obviously didn't know much about Son Goku, but the title behind the name made him feel a little strange. Yutian chuckled, mysteriously. If you go, you will know. Mo Luo pondered for a moment and nodded, okay, I can accompany you for a trip. Then he changed the topic, but the premise is that you have to give me the spiritual tree seeds. Dales on the side heard this and hurriedly interjected, the spirit tree seed is the key to the place of origin. Without it, we can't get there. When Mo Luo heard this, he turned his head suddenly, a fierce look flashed in his eyes. An invisible energy burst out instantly, hitting Dales directly. Bang! Dales was instantly knocked away, vomiting blood, fell heavily against the broken wall, and fainted. Moro glanced contemptuously at Dales, who fell on the ground, and sneered. A mere ant dares to talk in front of me. Then, he turned his gaze to Yutian again, with an undoubted threat in his tone. How do you think about the proposal I just made? Yutian still maintained his indifference and said with a smile, Mo Luo, are you a little too greedy? Naturally, he would not give the spiritual tree seeds to Mara. Maro laughed loudly, finally showing his evil face, and his face became ferocious. Yes, I am so greedy. If you know the truth, hand over the spiritual tree seeds, and I can leave you a way to live for the sake of helping me escape from prison. Yutian said calmly, then you try to get it yourself. Chapter 48. Yutian and Maluo are like two majestic mountain peaks, standing quietly. The invisible auras around him intertwined and collided, setting off waves of air. The clothes swelled with the wind and made a hunting sound. Finally, Mara couldn't restrain the rage in his heart and shouted angrily, like thunder exploding. Since you are looking for death, I will help you. Before he finished speaking, his figure turned into a bolt of lightning and rushed towards Yutian at an incredible speed. Yutian's eyes moved slightly, and he did not want to tangle with Mo Luo in the galaxy prison, so he did not choose to fight head-on. His body swayed, turned into a stream of light, and escaped outwards. Seeing this, Mo Luo mistakenly thought that Yutian was timid, raised a sneer on his lips, accelerated again, and chased after him. The two of them were like two shooting stars in the night sky, one after another, piercing the sky and rushing straight into the depths of the vast universe. Mara's laughter was eerie and terrifying, echoing in the void, you can't escape, so you better hand over the spirit tree seeds. Yutian chuckled, his voice indifferent. When did I say I wanted to escape? It's just that in this galactic prison, I can't use my skills. When Mo Luo heard this, he sneered even more. With a flash of purple light, his speed surged again, and he punched Yutian hard. Boom! There was a deafening bang. Mo Luo's powerful and heavy punch was unexpectedly caught firmly by Yutian. The two forces collided, causing a shock wave that swept across all directions, causing the color of the world to change. Humph, you are quite capable and can catch my punch. Mo Luo sneered again and again, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Yutian responded calmly. You are no different from each other. Let's see how long you can last. Before Mo Luo finished speaking, he stretched out his body and launched a flying kick like a tornado. Huge energy fluctuations caused the entire universe to freeze at this moment. Yutian's figure was strange, and he was as fleeting as a ghost, easily avoiding this fatal blow. Mo Luo's eyelids twitched slightly, and Yutian continued to dodge his attacks, which was beyond his expectation. He paused his offensive, looked at Yutian solemnly, and spoke slowly. I have almost never seen a strong person like you in the universe. How about I give you a chance and become my subordinate? Mo Luo had just escaped from the galaxy prison and was in urgent need of manpower. Seeing Yutian's amazing strength, he began to want to conquer him. Yutian laughed loudly, with a bit of joking. It seems that your long years in the galaxy prison have caused some problems in your mind, and you actually want to accept me as your subordinate. When Mara heard this, he was furious and secretly mobilized the natural power in his body. Then, with a thought, the meteorites floating around him seemed to be pulled by invisible threads, suddenly accelerated and poured towards the sky like raindrops. A force of nature? I can do it too. A faint smile appeared at the corner of Yutian's mouth, and his thoughts moved slightly. The meteorites around him seemed to be given life, and they also roared towards Mara's attack. Boom! 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 The loud noise of the meteorite collision shook the entire galactic prison like thunder. What is going on? Are those two people in the sky Yutian and Maluo? Jack looked up at the sky, feeling unspeakable fear in his heart. The commotion caused by Mara's recovery of strength had already made him feel ominous, and now this scene has confirmed his worst premonition. Lord Jack, what should we do? The soldiers on the side were extremely anxious, and their voices were trembling. Jia Qiqiang calmed down and ordered. Don't worry, stabilize your position first. The previous explosion in the galaxy prison caused a large number of prisoners to escape. You should immediately protect the universe spacecraft and capture those escapees at the same time. He paused, swallowed, and continued. As for here, we can only rely on Yutian. You go and prepare an interstellar phone, and I will report the current situation to the Galaxy King. If it comes to a critical moment, I am afraid I can only use that secret weapon. The soldiers took the order and took action immediately. And high in the sky, Mo Luo's face was terrifyingly gloomy. He spat out a few words coldly. I didn't expect that you also mastered the power of nature. Yutian smiled contemptuously, his words full of sarcasm. Such a simple move, is it so difficult for you? A hole. Mo Luo was laughed at repeatedly by Yutian, and his anger reached its peak at this moment. He mobilized all the energy in his body, the purple flames surged, and he raised his left and right hands at the same time. Then, a series of Qigong bombs containing terrifying power poured towards Yutian like a meteor shower. Facing the dense Qigong bombs, Yutian seemed calm and unhurried. His figure was as light as dancing autumn leaves, dodging one by one. The Qigong bombs that passed by him finally hit the meteorite in the distance, blowing it to pieces and turning it into rubble all over the sky. Seeing that all his attacks were in vain, Mo Luo flashed and approached Yutian in an instant. He clenched his hands and gathered an unprecedented huge wave of energy. That energy contained astonishing energy, and with a terrifying aura that could destroy everything, it rushed towards Yutian. However, when the smoke dissipated, Yutian's figure appeared intact in front of Mo Luo. I saw him crossing his hands in a cross shape, forcefully blocking the blow that could shake the stars. Mo Luo was shocked. He never expected that Yutian's strength was so unfathomable. At this moment, he even felt a little regretful. Maybe he should cooperate with Yutian first instead of rashly starting a war. Yutian slowly raised his head, with a playful smile on his lips. Now, is it my turn to attack? Mo Luo snorted coldly, whatever tricks you have, just use them. Yutian's expression instantly became serious. He took a deep breath, and his arrogance continued to surge. Immediately afterwards, it turned into a bright meteor, carrying the power of destroying the heaven and earth, and punched Mo Luo. Facing Yutian's offensive, Mo Luo did not flinch. He roared angrily, the aura in his body rising to the top like a volcano erupting, and he also punched forward. The two fists collided suddenly in the air. Boom! There was an earth-shattering loud noise, as if the entire universe was shaking at this moment. The destructive residual power centered on the two people and spread to the surroundings in an instant. Those meteorites suspended in the air were shattered into powder one after another under the impact of huge energy. The entire prison planet was also shaking under the shock of this force. There were unprecedented violent vibrations everywhere, as if it was about to collapse. What level of strength is this? Jack stood on the prison planet, barely able to steady his body, his heart filled with shock and fear. And those ordinary soldiers who were close to the battlefield were all spared. They were all scattered in all directions by this astonishing force, like loose sand blown up by the strong wind, flying up and falling feebly. At this time, deep within the core of a galactic prison planet, in a forbidden area that no one has set foot on since ancient times, a mysterious man with long purple hair slowly opened his closed eyes, as if he had awakened from endless years. There is actually a god-level battle taking place, and even the ancient restrictions of this sealed land are shaken by it, thus awakening me. His voice was low and magnetic, revealing an indescribable majesty. He closed his eyes slightly and quietly sensed everything around him. After a moment, he shook his head gently. It's a pity that those two little guys are still a little weaker after all. There is only a little bit left before I can use the energy fluctuations of this battle to break through this layer of restrictions and come back to the world. After saying that, he closed his eyes again, as if falling into a deep sleep again. But the mysterious and unpredictable aura from him proved to the world that he was a great being that could not be ignored. Chapter 49. After Yutian and Mo Luo finished fighting, both of them involuntarily stepped back a few meters, and the scene fell into a delicate balance for a while. Your strength indeed far exceeds my expectations. Mo Luo spoke first, with a hint of breath in his voice. It was obvious that the confrontation just now was a considerable physical exertion for him. Yutian looked indifferent. Your strength is not far from my previous estimate. Mo Luo sneered, with a hint of unwillingness in his tone. Humph, I have been imprisoned for tens of millions of years. Even if I regain my strength now, it is still far from the peak state of my youth. Otherwise, how could you be my opponent? He paused and added, what's more, I can't mobilize the power of the galactic prison planet, and my strength is once again greatly restricted. Yutian shook his head gently, with a hint of ridicule in his tone. Don't make excuses for your incompetence. Mara said seriously, what I said is true. But even so, you can't do anything to me. How about we shake hands and make peace, cooperate with each other, and make plans together? At this juncture, Mo Luo is still trying to reach a reconciliation with Yutian. Yushin responded calmly, you are a person who never keeps your word and is capricious. How can I trust you? Mo Luo laughed loudly, his voice full of confidence, to break one's word is for those with low strength. They are not worthy of negotiating terms with me. But you are different. You are of equal strength to me, so I will naturally keep my promise. Yushin nodded and then asked, according to your logic, can a weak person bully someone? Mora nodded without hesitation, that's natural. The law in the universe is that whoever has a bigger fist is qualified to reason. Yushin smiled slightly, with a hint of chill in his tone, I understand. Then according to your statement, you are not qualified to negotiate terms with me at all. When Mo Luo heard this, a cold light flashed in his eyes, what do you mean? Although I can't do anything to you, you can't do anything to me either. A faint smile appeared at the corner of Yushin's mouth, and his tone was calm, that's not necessarily true. In the confrontation just now, I only used 10% of my strength. When Mara heard this, his eyelids jumped suddenly and he sneered, no matter what big talk you make, you're not afraid of making people laugh. Yushin's eyes narrowed slightly and his tone was calm, whether it's a lie or not, you'll know soon. After saying that, Yushin's pupils slowly turned purple, and a terrifying power gradually awakened from his body. He activated the mysterious state again, and his combat power instantly increased 10 times. Mo Luo noticed the change in Yutian's eyes and was wary in his heart, but he still refused to be outdone, then I want to feel it. Yutian chuckled, as if responding to Mo Luo's challenge, satisfy you. As soon as he finished speaking, Yutian moved and instantly fired dozens of Qigong bullets towards Mo Luo. Mo Luo reacted quickly, dodging the attacks of Qigong bombs like a ghost. This attack has no effect on me. Mo Luo sneered while avoiding. Really? Yushin's voice suddenly sounded in Mo Luo's ears. Mo Luo was shocked. He didn't know when Yutian had quietly walked in front of him. Before he could react, Yushin punched him hard on the cheek. Mo Luo had no time to defend himself and flew out instantly. Yutian did not stop but accelerated and came to Mo Luo again, followed by another sharp kick. Before Mara could recover from the previous attack, he suffered another heavy blow and his body was knocked away again. Yutian took advantage of the victory to pursue, and kicked Mo Luo's head hard from top to bottom. Mo Luo's consciousness couldn't keep up with Yutian's movements at all, and he could only watch the leg fall. Bang! With a deafening loud noise, Mo Luo fell hard to the ground like a fired cannonball. The whole person was inserted into the soil upside down in a very unsightly posture, and for a while, dust flew up. Junior, I think you are tired of living. Mara roared angrily, and he struggled to break free from the soil. His upper body was covered with soil and grass clippings, making him look particularly embarrassed. His eyes were burning with raging anger, as if he wanted to devour Yu Shang alive, and the arrogance in his body also climbed to its peak. After accumulating energy, he instantly turned into a stream of light and rushed towards Yushin. He waved his arm suddenly and slashed with his side palm like a sharp blade. This blow contained all of Mo Luo's power. Along with the sound of wind breaking through the sky, the entire space seemed to be distorted by this blow. Yutian's eyes were solemn, and he raised his arms, preparing to deal with the blow. Bang! As the two fought, a deafening sound erupted. Then, there was a click. Mo Luo's palm was shattered directly by this collision, and blood spattered everywhere, which looked extremely tragic. Mo Luo was in pain and quickly retracted his arm, a trace of panic flashed in his eyes. Yutian seized this opportunity, dodged, and hit Mo Luo in the abdomen with a punch. Mara received this heavy blow, his eyes seemed to bulge out of his sockets, his body almost fell apart, and he fell weakly to the ground again. This time, he no longer had the strength to get up. Yutian slowly fell down and looked down at Mo Luo, how is it? How do you feel? Mara was about to open his mouth to refute, but a large amount of blood spurted out from his mouth, and he was speechless for a moment. He could only stare at Yushin with wide eyes, as if he wanted to cut him into pieces. Yutian deliberately provoked, why don't you speak? Are you still not convinced? Do you need me to teach you a lesson? Mo Luo's face turned pale. After adjusting for a long time, he said bitterly, I didn't expect you to have such power. I underestimated you. Yutian smiled slightly. You just said that your strength has not returned to its peak, so I will help you and let you return to the peak and fight me again. How about it? After saying that, a force of nature emitted from Yutian's fingers and passed to Mo Luo's body like a trickle. Mo Luo was stunned by Yutian's behavior. He never expected that Yutian would transfer his energy to himself. However, what he didn't know was that every time he increased his strength by 10%, Yutian would increase tenfold. In other words, he is simply Yutian's best upgrade package. Chapter 50. Mo Luo felt the surging power in his body, but he was not in a hurry to attack again. Instead, his eyes were bright and he asked warily, "What exactly is your intention with this move?" As a demon who has lived for tens of millions of years, he naturally would not believe that Yutian would be so kind as to deliver energy to him. A playful smile appeared at the corner of Yutian's lips, and he said leisurely, "Didn't you feel quite unwilling just now and thought I was too weak to win? Now that I have helped you regain your strength, why have you become timid?" Mo Luo snorted coldly, "You are so kind? Do you think I am stupid?" Yutian laughed, purple light flashed in his eyes, "Since you have been reluctant to take action, then let me take the initiative." As soon as he finished speaking, Yutian's purple pupils flashed, his body flashed, and he rushed towards Mo Luo instantly. Is it faster? Was he still hiding his strength just now? Mo Luo was horrified when he saw Yutian's speed. He quickly adjusted his posture and prepared to deal with Yutian's attack. However, just when Yutian was only 3 meters away from him, he mysteriously disappeared. Hateful. Maro lost sight of Yutian and felt very anxious. How could this happen? I have obviously recovered most of my strength, so why is there still such a big gap between me and him? When did such a powerful person come into being in the universe? Unable to find Yutian's figure, Mo Luo could only rely on his combat experience and wave his fists like a gamble. Where are you hitting? Yutian's chuckle sounded like a ghost behind Mo Luo. Immediately afterwards, a deafening loud noise came. Bang! Mo Luo felt a sharp pain in his back, and Yutian's knee hit his spine hard. His whole body was like a funny clown, and he suddenly fell forward. Bang! 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 Along with a series of dull sounds, Mo Luo's body rolled on the ground 3 times in a row before finally stopping, looking extremely embarrassed. At this moment, there were some soldiers nearby who had not yet evacuated. They were all shocked and dumbfounded when they witnessed this scene. Although everyone knew that Yutian was extremely powerful, no one knew that he was so powerful. The former demon was unable to do anything in his hands. Jack stood not far away. After witnessing all this, his brain instantly shut down and went blank. Yutian's current opponent is not a rising star like Frieza. It's a terrifying existence that even the Supreme Kai has to pay a heavy price to seal. Yutian, he is so terrifying. Jack secretly exclaimed, the Galaxy Empire must not be his enemy. He couldn't wait to get in touch with the Galaxy King and report everything that happened here in detail. At this moment, Mara struggled to get up from the ground, his eyes filled with flames of anger and humiliation. Ahole! How dare you humiliate me like this? Mo Luo's mentality exploded. As the master of the universe thousands of years ago, he was being played with by Yutian again and again like a child. He finally understood that Yutian's previous transfer of energy to him was not out of kindness, but to trample on his dignity even more thoroughly. That's unreasonable. I'll fight you. Mara went completely crazy, and he began to burn his life to mobilize the natural power of the prison planet. Originally, the prison planet had strong restrictions, and he was unable to mobilize the power of the planet. But at this moment, on the one hand, with Yutian's help, his strength has recovered to 70% to 80%, on the other hand, he relies on burning vitality, once again raising his strength to an astonishing limit. Boom! The entire prison planet seemed to be shaken by an invisible force and began to tremble violently. The dust and gravel on the ground were scattered everywhere. The trembling was getting bigger and bigger, as if a huge hand was constantly stirring the ground, making the entire planet seem to be out of balance. Jack stood not far away, feeling the tremors under his feet, and his face instantly turned as pale as paper. He tried hard to steady his body, but the irresistible force made his feet unsteady and he stumbled to the ground. He put his hands on the ground and raised his head in horror, his eyes full of fear of the unknown. What does this Mara want to do? There was a tremor in Jack's voice. He couldn't understand why Mo Luo mobilized the power of the planet so crazily. He knew that once Mara succeeded, the entire prison planet would face the crisis of destruction. The surrounding soldiers also fell to the ground, and the scene was chaotic. Lord Jack, you have contacted the Galaxy headquarters. Do you want to use that secret weapon? The communications soldier hurried back, his face anxious and his voice trembling. Jack frowned, thought for a moment, and then said, "No need for the time being, I believe Yutian is capable of solving this crisis. Quick, let me talk to the Galaxy King first." Yes. At this time, Yutian was staring at Mo Luo's twisted face with a solemn expression. He knew very well that this devil must be dealt with as soon as possible to avoid further complications. Taking a deep breath, Yutian gathered all his strength and launched a fierce attack on Mo Luo. Huge energy surged in the air, setting off a shocking wave, and the surrounding sand and rocks were swept up and flying all over the sky. Mo Luo, how can you resist this punch? Yutian mixed with the rolling momentum and punched out with astonishing power. Mo Luo also saw Yutian's attack, and his eyes almost burst. He roared angrily, "I will fight you today." Immediately, he fused his own energy with the mobilized force of nature, and assembled the most peak punch he could achieve at this moment. When Yutian saw this, a mocking smile appeared on his lips. "It's all in vain." Boom! There was another loud noise. It was as if the sky was being torn apart, and the deafening sound made the surrounding air tremble. Under this blow, the yellow sand rolled like waves and spread in all directions, covering the sky and the sun. When the thick smoke finally dissipated, the figures of Yutian and Mo Luo appeared clearly in front of everyone again. However, at this time, the expressions of both of them changed drastically. Their eyes widened, full of shock and disbelief. Yutian's eyes flashed with uncertainty. He couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. Mara, on the other hand, had a face full of horror, as if he had seen a ghost. His mouth was wide open, but he could not say a word. Between them, a figure of a purple-haired young man stood quietly. With one hand in his hand, he easily caught the attacks of the two. "Two little guys, why do you want to get into such a big fight?" The purple-haired young man smiled slightly, giving people an indescribable lazy feeling. Yutian frowned, he had never seen this person in the original work. But this person can appear in an instant and prevent him and Mora from attacking with all their strength, so his strength is certainly extraordinary. "Who are you?" Mara asked, looking wary. His thoughts coincided with Yutian's. The purple-haired man laughed and said coolly, "Excuse me, Lei Suo. This is our first meeting. Please bear with me." If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.